Jack couldn't understand how long he had been unconscious. Tomorrow was the university entrance ceremony, and he couldn't be late. Opening his eyes and feeling slightly dizzy, he remembered that he had been hung up by a rope and beaten unconscious. Jack looked at the bullies and realized that they were not going to let him go. They said that he was just as trash as their classmates. The main one among them said that he constantly beat Jack at school, but he turned out to be too resilient and did not die. This guy's name was Caleb, and he was a tyrant. The guy made fun of Jack's character in the game, saying that he wouldn't make him any cooler. Dealing another blow to the bound boy's body, Caleb shouted that he would remain a pauper. And it all started because Jack accidentally pushed him. Now even apologizing was useless. Caleb wouldn't let go of him. The guy, already having a wealth of experience communicating with such people, understood that it was useless to ask for mercy from such people, and who had made him awakened. Awakening is a second birth. Through the game Heavenly Confrontation, some players who awakened have made it their main job. In reality, they can also gain gaming skills. This is the awakening. The younger and stronger they are, the more respected they are the top of the elite. Caleb shook his hand, saying that he was covered in blood, and his flatterers began to persuade the boy to stop, because Jack could die. The gang leader turned to his friend and asked if he felt sorry for this misery. The guy replied that he was just afraid of getting into trouble because of it. The hooligan replied that until Jack dies, no one will care. Elites like Caleb will do anything about it. Jack was bleeding, but still, with his last strength, he looked at the people opposite. He saw that Caleb was looking in his direction with great hatred. Seeing the victim looking at him, the boy shouted that he hated Jack with a battle cry that was an awakened skill. From the scream, the bound boy was thrown back by a wave of battle cry. This skill shook the ground and could hit the target it was aimed at. Caleb was very angry that Jack was still morally resisting him. The guy was shouting that he was awake, and the victim had nothing to count on. Jack began to cough up blood from the second shockwave. He thought to himself that he really wanted to be awakened too. Then his fate would have been completely different. The boy's thoughts were interrupted by the voice of the hooligans who, citing the late hour, were about to leave. Caleb said that he didn't even hit Jack with full force, and when asked that the guy needed to be put down, he replied that he wasn't finished yet. Jack was left hanging in the tree. He thought that it would be great if he had more strength. But this was just his dream, not reality. When night fell on the city, he was already at home. After such a hard day, the boy simply needed to wash away all of Caleb's efforts to humiliate him. Drying his wet hair with a towel, the boy looked at the gaming helmet lying on the table next to him. This world is quite inhospitable to him, so he liked being in the world of Confrontation of Heaven more. A few seconds into the game loading, and he was already inside it, in the cathedral location. His ID was Jack, level 120, class Thief. He considered himself a talented player, but was inferior to others because he started playing very late. Yesterday, it was not easy for him to get the dark gold dagger, but in the Thieves rating, his level only became lower. The players who were on the board with him also went not far. They found some cool loot in some cave. Someone must have taken them there. Jack himself was now in 3,960,000th place. Such was his sad reality, no matter how hard he tried. The guy spent the entire year from 2061 to 2062 to climb from a nameless list to the ranking of the first 100,000 players with his class. He probably won't be able to overtake the other players in the first 100 names on the first page now, no matter how gods do it. Jack turned away from the ranking table and sighed sadly. It was already unrealistic to break into the top 100. Thoughts about the tops of all classes drove him only into absolute horror. Jack decided to move away from the rating table altogether. If only the boy had another chance. Maybe he could become one of the awakened. While passing by one of the many clusters of players, he heard that someone from the clan was needed for help on a certain quest. The girl they approached replied that she was already on a team with someone and didn't want to strain the clan. This time they would take him. Her interlocutor replied that, in that case, he would be her bodyguard and guarantor of safety because anything could happen in the game. In response, the man heard that she was not a child and knew what was what. These three paid a lot to accept the challenge. The man replied that there was another player not involved. He must have been left here from the last party. Jack, realizing that he was being talked about, greeted him and said that he was level 120th and a thief class, and he had come to help. The security guard replied that it was okay without that. They had seen his message. They had only taken him for the full party. There was no need to get confused underfoot. In reality, Jack didn't particularly enjoy interacting with people, not even in the circumstances of the game. But it still amazed him why some people, even in the game, were so cruel. One of the party members said that, according to rumors, the guy was not from the clan and was not even awakened. Jack replied that he was just a solo player. A clan is a group of technical players, special players who, for a fee, help complete a quest or some requirements in a match. Jack's skills had long been enough to join the clan, but he wouldn't pay the entrance fee. After all, he still needed to live on something. Another participant said that he was just scared of the soloists who joined the party. It's unclear whether they can play. In general, there are no guarantees. Jack reacted coolly to these words, crossing his arms over his chest, which angered the author of the speech, as if the guy was really trying to be cool. The girl decided to hush up the conflict because the guy had already been accepted to the party, the quest hadn't started yet, and there were problems like this, so nothing would work out. The security guard said with a smile and smugness that everyone could relax because he was in the party. The party was fully assembled. It was necessary to teleport, and Jack was allowed in first. He didn't hesitate and entered the bright white light with blue lightning. But when the boy disappeared into the portal, the light of the teleporter changed. All the players present had never seen such a sight in their lives. Yellow and blue lightning bolts began to strike everything around, and the players, trying to avoid the impact, ran as fast as they could from the square. The party participants didn't understand what had happened, why the teleportation was so strange this time. This had never happened before. Was there really some kind of system error? How could Jack have missed it? Meanwhile, the guy also didn't understand where he was now. He seemed to have rushed off on a quest, but was he in the right place? Jack looked around him, trying to figure out where he was, but all he could see was a strange teleporter. Suddenly, the boy noticed that his body began to fall apart. Something was definitely happening. Jack began to press the exit button, as if in a fever, but he couldn't do it. Had there really been some kind of error? The guy was scared. Despite his body disintegrating, Jack continued to try to exit the game until his hand dissipated into a pixel. Jack's last thoughts were that he really was a loser, and here he had found a bug. What else was expected of him? He already wished it would be erased as soon as possible, even if it would somehow make his soul feel calmer. In his own way, he was struck by this feeling of relief. Jack had been very tired this whole year, and maybe the idea of erasing it would even be for the better. In any case, with a life like his, it's not a pity to say goodbye at all. I have too many regrets. The players, who were staring at the teleporter and didn't think to leave, were waiting for the guy who still hadn't appeared. The guard in Jack's cell looked thoughtfully at this spectacle. He found everything that was happening very strange. He opened the quest table with a list of party players. Jack's account had also disappeared. Solo was nowhere to be found. A few seconds later, Jack opened his eyes and looked at his arms, which had become very long. Was it really some kind of illusion? The guy sat up in bed. He had strange feelings. His body was somehow unusual. Seeing a mirror next to the bed, he picked it up and, in surprise, looked at his face, wondering if he was still in the game. The voice of an old man interrupted his thoughts, noting that the boy had finally come to his senses. Seeing the boy drop the mirror on the floor in fright, the grandfather noted that he didn't seem to remember anything. He said that he found Jack in an alley. The boy was lying under the rubble. Jack asked where they were now. Grandfather, pouring soup into a battered bowl, replied that they were in his home. He added that the boy had been unconscious for a whole day and was probably very hungry. He urgently needed to eat. Jack heard on TV that several countries had signed a contract to produce the game Confrontation of Heaven, and the recruitment had been underway for 3 months. Heavenly Confrontation had already attracted a large number of players. The number of applications had broken all possible records. Jack could not believe his ears. They said on TV that this game had already become the most significant event of 2060. The announcer invited people to join this game, and dreams would come true. Jack stared at the TV in amazement. What year is 2060 even talking about? That was 3 years ago. After a few seconds of stupor, the boy shouted loudly to his grandfather to immediately tell him what year it was. Grandpa froze with a plate of soup in his hands. After thinking a little, he replied that, as they said on TV, it was 2060. But the boy no longer paid attention to his grandfather's words that he was probably starving. Had he really gone back 3 years? Did the gods Jack pray to really hear his prayers and really give the guy another chance? Grandpa saw that the boy was somehow frozen in place and decided to ask if everything was okay. But in response, he only heard laughter. Now Jack could join the list of the best players, become the strongest awakened, and found his own clan. Everything was fine. By the will of heaven, Jack could now achieve everything he had so eagerly desired. Having finally made sure of what world he was in, the boy started eating. He was actually very hungry. Grandpa begged Jack not to rush. He said that there was still food left in the pot, but the boy replied that he was extremely hungry. Hearing this answer, the grandfather said that in that case he would immediately go and add an additional portion. Grandpa decided to ask Jack if he was alone in this world, carefully pouring an extra portion. Jack. This question made him think that it seemed that he had been alone all his life. He didn't even know where his parents were now. Judging by his recollections, they probably weren't there at all. Maybe they really left him. The boy told his grandfather that he was completely alone. The old man replied that even if the boy didn't know what this place was, he could still come. Jack looked around him. He really didn't know where he was, but the whole situation seemed like something very specific. It was like a so-called ghetto, a refuge for all those who could not survive in the neighboring city. Grandfather sadly confirmed that this was a place where the poor gathered. Jack remembered how in a past life he had rented the nearest cheap hostel with his saved money, without knowing what kind of place it was. Grandpa, meanwhile, was telling me that for the game they were just talking about, he needed to buy a helmet, and that's when he spent all his savings. His son was severely malnourished in order to buy this thing. Maybe that's why he didn't live long. He planned that if he could become awakened, he would change their lives for the best. His son really believed that he could succeed in this game. That's what the boy said then. He really wanted to help his father leave this God-forgotten place. Turning to Jack, the grandfather noted that reality could not be changed so easily with the help of a game. His son was simply a stupid child. But Jack interrupted the old man and noted that his son was right. It was possible. If you become awakened, then you can change reality. This is an unusual game, and the son did not deceive his father. In the future, confrontation is not just a virtual world. The grandfather silently looked at his new acquaintance, remembering his son's words that he would definitely pull them out of poverty. The enthusiasm with which Jack spoke about this game reminded him a lot of his son. He decided to thank the boy for it. Judging by the boy's appearance, Jack was still studying. In the future, if he had nowhere to go, he could live here. The boy was struck by the kindness of the old man, with whom they were almost strangers, and with surprise thanked him for such words. And, as if not letting the boy come to his senses, the grandfather said that there was something else he could share with the boy. His son was no longer there, and there was no point in keeping it. He shuffled something in the closet for a long time, but finally pulled out the helmet and handed it to Jack, saying it was a gift. It was a first-generation gaming helmet. His son wouldn't want it to bury his hopes and turn to ashes. If the boy wants, he can continue to fulfill his son's dream, Jack replied, so that his grandfather wouldn't worry about it. He was not only going to continue his son's dream, but he was also completely confident that he would achieve it. He will definitely make his dream come true and will start doing something for it right now. The guy put on a helmet and started creating a new character. He chose a name, and it came down to choosing a race and class. It was more comfortable to play as a human. In humans, intelligence and perception increased by 1 point with each level. He never particularly liked elves with their ears. Their magic and agility increased with each level. There were also orcs, whose strength and defense increased by 1 point with each level. Jack thought in confusion. He couldn't finally choose. Although each race had its advantages, this would matter when choosing a class. In the game Confrontation of Heaven, there were 5 classes to choose from: warrior, mage, archer, thief, and priest. When choosing the thief class, the game offered 3 branches: a human thief, a shadow who could sneak and kill. The second branch was the elf thief, a character who was fast and agile, a true assassin. The third branch was the orc thief, a real bandit who loved to go on a frontal attack. In the end, Jack decided that he would probably choose a person after all. In the past, he had played for the shadow. One cannot waste past experience. Jack received the basic active skill Rear Strike at the first level, giving 12 characteristic points which are now displayed on the game's scoreboard. This time, the guy decided to fully upgrade his agility, taking into account the next level. When there were no more free attribute points left and armor was obtained, the character began loading into the game. A few seconds later, when the countdown ended, the boy finally found himself in the City of People, in the square near the cathedral. Teleporting to the square, Jack looked around him. Finally, he was here again. In the past, he only started playing the following year. This time, he had a pretty good chance of becoming the best. The only thing Jack didn't expect to see was such a crowd of people. It was just impossible to push through. Recruitment into the game lasted only 3 months, and there were already so many people in this world wanting to join. Jack realized that he just needed to catch a good moment and think it over. He needed to look at the rating lists. The current ranking list was topped by Blackcloak, a level 12th warrior, the same player as in his past life. This was a player who hid his data. No one knew anything about him. He didn't join clans and was the strongest player. In his past life, Blackcloak also always topped the ranking list, and it wasn't surprising, he was always a master. Apparently, the top is mostly made up of masters from past lives and legendary clans, all of whom are already making their first successes. In order to implement his plan, Jack definitely needed to speed up. This time he will have to go through his past life experiences again in this game. Only in this way can one achieve the goal of becoming the most powerful and invincible and reach the level of God. The teleport had already activated, preparing to transport the hero to the next quest. Now the goal could be reached with devastating speed. No player had become awakened yet this year, and Jack had the perfect chance to be the first. He couldn't waste another second and decided to take it to the next level right now. Properly this time, and after a few seconds the guy arrived at his destination. Although, in the past, Jack had also often been to this location and nothing should have surprised him. But it wasn't. Every time he came here, Jack was very surprised by how many people there were. In the main city, the settlement of newcomers trade was in full swing, and there was always something to negotiate. Merchants offered first-level newcomers the opportunity to buy equipment and armor for 1 silver coin. This armor was supposedly better than the initial loot, so it could be leveled up faster, but the quantity was limited. The newcomers were very eager to accept such offers, of course. They still had a poor understanding of the game. In the past, Jack also spent a couple dozen coins to buy a dagger for a level 1 thief. This blade was 2 attack points better than a standard dagger. Now the boy realized what a fool he had been. The kind of loot he spent so much money on could be found in level 3 locations. These traders only do what they can to make money from newbies. After the 3rd level, they are mostly eliminated. At the beginning, leveling up isn't that difficult, but it's impossible to get to the beginner's village after level 5, only with the help of a special quest. Now, from the height of his experience, Jack understood well that leveling up from scratch was certainly an achievable goal. The boy's thoughts were interrupted by the voice of a girl who was asking someone in the party, promising that she would be obedient. The guys were completely delighted with the beautiful elf. The players here are good-natured until they reach the 3rd or 4th level. But when the players reached level 5, the highest in the village, they were basically all with an old man who offered to level up. A level 1 player can only build a party with players 2 levels below them, so level 5 players in a sweep party were common. A level 1 player can form a party with up to 3 players, and the number of players in a party is determined by the captain. There are too many newcomers taking on the quest. In order to kill a level 1 monster, beginners have to stand in line and wait for their chance. The game had no main storyline. It was important for the player to explore the world and develop. It was difficult to kill a monster, so leveling up was slow. But Jack, of course, knew the fastest way to get to level 5 in this game. He needed to find a shopping street. The shop for beginners was somewhere here. The shop was crowded. Behind the counter, there was a crowd of young men discussing the beauty of the NPC saleswoman. Jack tried to break through to the counter, under the astonished gazes of the higher-level players who didn't understand what he had forgotten there. The NPC girl politely asked what he wanted. Jack asked for a starter scroll of acceleration and a disposable cat hook. Their dialogue was interrupted by the laughter of the other players, who laughed at his choice as Jack had spent all his bonuses on 2 items. The most ardent supporter shouted to the NPC saleswoman that Jack could give him a scroll or money and he would help him level up. But the agreement went through and the saleswoman asked to pick up the guy's order. The items were added to the equipment. It cost 90 copper coins. In front of the astonished spectators, the guy took his order and prepared to leave, not even reacting to the laughter and remarks. To somehow hide their humiliation, the guys began to call Jack a stupid rookie. And that's what stopped Jack and forced him to answer. He asked how long they had been swinging to get their level. They started answering in turn. It took someone 15 days to reach level 3, someone 13, and that was still pretty fast. Many needed 10 days to reach level. Jack was completely clear. He said that in a couple of days the boys would still be here. And amidst the stormy answers and questions of his interlocutors, the guy simply silently waved his hand at them. As they turned the corner, Jack said that they would meet in a day, because in a day they would understand everything. He needed Sunset Mountain, which was north of the main city, the top of the mountain touching the sky and hidden in the clouds. When Jack reached the indicated place, he looked around in surprise. There were not many people here, although there were quite a few starting quests here. He thought that if there were not many people, then there would be less gossip and he could safely raise his level. Jack heard the other participants talking about opening a dialogue with the old man upstairs, and the quest would start by itself. One player didn't understand what this meant at all. After the dialogue, a 10-minute countdown begins for the quest, and you need to get to the top in 10 minutes. The interlocutors agreed with him. It was unrealistic to do it even in 20 minutes. They were still of too low a level of characteristics. The first part of the path was still a road. It is important that there is a cliff in the middle. You need to go around to the other side of the peak and only then continue the path. The elf nurse, already familiar to Jack, shouted that there was a bottomless abyss over there if he didn't go around it. She even jumped once, thinking there was a hidden platform there, and as a result she died. These words caused a storm of emotions among the guys. The girl said that her party broke up because of this quest, and the guys offered to take her somewhere else to level up. In addition to listening to other people's chatter, the boy was focused on finding the quest acceptance and submission mark, which should have been here. Suddenly, Jack heard the voice of an old man who suggested that he look at the landscape on the mountaintop, but the interlocutor refused. It was the same old man's NPC from above that he needed. There was no time to waste. He approached the NPC and greeted him politely. The old man asked if the guy was ready to take the risk and see the scenery on the mountaintop. Jack replied that everything was true. He had come to appreciate the view from the top of the mountain. The conversation stopped. All the players started following the first-level thief, wondering if he was really going to take this quest. He must have heard others talking about the quest. The thief didn't even think about whether he could do it with his rank and skills. It was only obvious that high-level players could complete this quest, and the elf was very sorry for wasting so much time here. Everyone was curious about what would come of this. They wanted to wait until the guy failed the quest and returned like a beaten dog. Meanwhile, Jack received a message that the old man's NPC was offering him to accept the quest. The 10-minute countdown began after accepting the conditions. Before that, Jack had allocated all 12 stat points to intuition specifically for this quest to get the maximum speed bonus. This is a special quest. He has already tried to complete it and failed many times. If he succeeds this time, Jack will receive special equipment. This was to be his first step on the path to success. The guy resolutely called up the game dialogue screen and accepted the quest. After that, he looked back at the old NPC and said that they were destined to meet at the top of the mountain soon. The countdown started and the guy started off as fast as he could, leaving all the participants and NPCs behind. The clock showed 9:59. Jack's speed was incredible. He flew like lightning, avoiding all obstacles in his path. Other players, watching his path, called him stupid and eagerly awaited his failure in this quest. They hoped that the wait would not be long and that they would soon be able to see it. But unexpectedly, their expectations were interrupted. The thief did not go along the serpentine path at all, as they expected. Instead of a serpentine road, the thief chose a forest thicket, away from the mountain road. The path through the mountain serpentine was undoubtedly safe and comfortable, but at the same time, winding and difficult. The direct route between point A and point B is the shortest. If you follow a well-trodden mountain road, it will be several times longer. None of the players ever walked through these thickets because they had their own pitfalls. The game system was designed in such a way that it could conduct a clearing in the forest at any time, for example, with the help of a grassy monster with a big mouth. In a past life, Jack had learned the fastest way to the top for a thief at a sufficient level, and he had walked this path countless times. And these big-mouthed grass monsters were the secret to quickly climbing to the top of this mountain. Usually these monsters didn't take long to appear, and this time Jack saw them after just a few seconds in the forest. They were the most common monsters in the mountain forest thickets. Although not a threat to travelers, they were still a headache. The existence of these monsters ensured Jack's goal was achieved. He activated the backstab skill. A second later, he flew up behind the monster, delivering a blow. A system message announced that the backstab was 80% complete. This was the key point of all of Jack's movements, using the back kick. He reduced the time it took to climb. A system message announced that after everything he had done, Jack had aroused a very high degree of hatred in the grassy, big-mouthed monster. 20 seconds later, the guy, who hadn't stopped for a second, received a message that his backstabbing had resumed. As soon as the announcement was read, Jack immediately began to use his skill, delivering another blow to his opponent. Meanwhile, at the foot of the hill, other participants were placing bets on how many seconds a level 1 thief could last while completing this quest. The elf nurse wanted to be the first to guess. She said that the boy wouldn't be able to last a minute. Her assumption was readily supported by all the boys who were in love with her. The thief was level 1. The monsters would have wiped him out in 3 seconds. Jumping from one branch to another, Jack only noticed that a huge crowd of grass monsters was already rushing after him. But there was no time to stop. The next stop was the fault near the top of Sunset Mountain. Jack understood that here he needed to jump to the other side, and somewhere nearby he would see this fault. Intuition and memory did not fail the boy this time either. After a few seconds, he saw a huge abyss in front of him. It took at least 10 minutes to get to the other side of the mountain, but if there was some way to cross the fault at this point. The clock showed 6 minutes and 10 seconds, and Jack could already clearly see the top of the mountain in front of him. He remembered this rift. There must be a nest somewhere there where grassy, big-mouthed monsters gathered. After looking around through the fog, the boy finally saw that the nest was really where he thought it was. Jack realized it was time to use the claw and acceleration scroll. A system message made it clear that the scroll was activated. The power of the scroll was activated for 9 seconds, so it was necessary to act immediately. The guy activated a backstab. The grass monsters, gathered in a crowd in the nest, seemed to sense something at that very moment. But one feeling wasn't enough. Jack was already behind one of the monsters preparing to strike. This was the guy's only chance to get to the top, and the guy was going to use it 100%. Delivering blow after blow around him, Jack simultaneously pushed away from the monsters, trying to jump even higher up the mountain. The guy realized that he had gained enough speed to reach his goal. Through the thick fog, Jack saw an old dry tree, which was needed to cling to the other side of the mountain. The boy threw out a hook to grab onto a branch. He figured the distance was just right. All he had to do was clench his teeth. There was no other way to call it than a leap of faith. Jack was simply flying over the abyss. The boy could already see the other side of the mountain, where the last step remaining to complete the quest awaited him. This large grass monster that appeared on the edge of the mountain and stared at Jack was the last obstacle to victory. Jack was very encouraged by the last obstacle he saw on his way. There were 5 minutes and 30 seconds left on the clock. With 5 minutes and 17 seconds left on the countdown, the boy landed on the top of the mountain, having cleared the last obstacle. At the top, an old man was waiting for him, who said something he couldn't have imagined. The boy reached the mountain without spending even half of the allotted time. The NPC old man called Jack a young adventurer. He flew through the fog and reached the top. He had extraordinary determination. The boy replied that if he hadn't had the determination to admire the views from the top of the mountain, things would have been different. In that case, he would not have fully grasped the perfection of climbing a mountain peak. The old NPC replied that he thought the boy was a rather interesting young man. He noted that Jack is a person who is capable of discovering unparalleled power. The old man's special hidden mission, proving incomparability, was revealed to the boy, which shocked Jack a little. The old man asked why Jack was so surprised. Having spent only half of the allotted time, he was supposed to receive a special hidden mission. He noted that the boy, with his determination, reminded him a lot of himself at a young age. The boy, like a madman, was filled with a firm determination to become king, and the old man handed Jack a toy. The amazed boy took the object. He couldn't believe his eyes. It was an extraordinary feat. It was a dust-covered proof of glory, concealing the mysterious history and journeys that great people received. As soon as Jack picked up the item, a system message announced the opening of a special hidden mission, Glorious Path. Nothing specific was written. It seemed like it was a research mission. Jack had never heard of such a thing in the past and had no idea what it was. The elder said that this was a reward for climbing, which is given according to the type of activity, and he was pleased with the boy's determination. A panel appeared in front of the boy with a description of a new item. It was special quest equipment that had exceptional properties. The Perfection set had a perfect power of 1000% damage to all monsters of level 5 or below. It disappeared upon reaching level 5. Jack was very eager to immediately equip himself with a set of Perfection. He was completely in favor of this idea. A few seconds later, the boy, having passed through the panel, was already dressed in new armor. The old NPC said that his purpose on this mountain had already been fulfilled. Jack asked who the old man was, because he began to suspect that he was not such a simple character. The elder replied that they would certainly see each other again if the boy still had the determination to conquer another peak. With this statement, he intrigued Jack even more. The guy mentally repeated the words about conquering the peak. The elder said that he wanted to take the boy for a while, so that the people at the foot of the mountain would witness their return. The guy must return with the grandeur of a mountaintop conqueror. At the foot of the hill, the players were still waiting for the thief to return. They thought the boy would never return at all. But the heated, sarcastic dialogue stopped when one of them saw some bright flashes in the distance. After a few seconds, the flashes approached and hit the ground with a powerful beam of energy. No one present could understand what was happening, whether it was some kind of aliens or a game bug. But when the smoke cleared, everyone was shocked by what they saw in front of them. It was the same first-level thief along with the old man. None of the players could understand what was happening. Were these two really plot characters in the game? And indeed, the thief couldn't actually complete the quest climbing to the top. He was a first-level thief. The elf nurse suspected that Jack had succeeded after all, because it looked like he was wearing a reward for completing the quest. No one could have imagined that such equipment could be won in such a quest. Jack realized that they had caused a real commotion. Looking around him and seeing the gap they had created with their arrival, the boy realized that this too had made a huge impression on those around him. The old man said that he could only take the boy to this place, and Jack realized that he would have to deal with those around him himself. He thanked the old NPC out loud, and after that, he suddenly began to generate a golden stream of energy. This spectacle made an even greater impression on everyone present, including Jack. No one understood what kind of NPC could do such things. Everyone thought that this old man was a simple NPC who didn't stand out from the rest. One of the players shouted that this set of equipment that was being worn by the thieves could be a set for a unique quest. The elf nurse asked what unique quest he was talking about. The guy replied that the quests of the Lord of the Sky are divided into 3 large-scale types. The first type was a quest, a reward. These are quests or dungeons that players most often come across. The reward for completing such quests was usually experience, money, and equipment. The second type was a quest adventure, in which the player can meet an unusual character or obtain interesting information. In these quests, the player may be rewarded with additional special characteristics or special artifacts, and so on. The third type was unique quests. They are very special. If the player completes this quest, it will disappear forever, and others will also never see it again. Each type of quest also has 2 ways to complete it: group and solo. In addition to the unique quest, where the difficulty level is set, in the other 2 types you can choose one of 5 types of difficulty level. The elf nurse was enchanted. Now it was no wonder this outfit looked so good. Meanwhile, the old man said that he and Jack would meet again if he ever dared to set out on a journey along the brilliant path. And, despite the boy's questions about the mission, the old man said goodbye to Jack as a candidate for glory. A second later, the old man disappeared in a golden glow, leaving Jack thinking about the words the boy had just heard. It was completely unclear how difficult this quest was and whether it required any specific level. But all that was unimportant now. Jack urgently needed to raise his level. The boy's thoughts were interrupted by an elf nurse who lashed out at him, saying that she thought he was really cool. She started asking to go with Jack to improve her level because she thought the guy was a master. Jack noted that the girl's figure was nothing special. The other participants in the game heard the girl's words and they didn't like the elf's behavior very much. She promised them the same. The guys started saying that Jack didn't have long to enjoy his life because the old man could end him at any moment. But the elf nurse immediately came to Jack's defense, saying that the envious people had not completed the quest themselves and therefore were not that strong. Jack realized that he would probably have to hide his equipment and hide his identity so that he wouldn't be harassed again. A second later, the equipment effect was hidden. Other players now saw Jack in his normal form. Seeing Jack leaving, the elf asked how he could leave them like that. The boy replied that they wouldn't be able to stand the places he was going. These words forced one of the players to challenge Jack to a solo duel. The guy was sure that he would punish Jack for his arrogance. Jack the thief stopped and half-turned to his potential opponent, asking if he really wanted to try a duel. Such determination forced the enemy to immediately retreat, and everyone around began to understand that Jack was probably completely crazy. Realizing that there would be no duel, the boy muttered under his breath that he had no time for idiots and a girl of easy virtue. The elf thought with annoyance that this thief didn't have a drop of respect. Now she would have to deal with these idiots again. A moment later, the girl was standing next to the guy she had betrayed and again asking to take her on an upgrade. To settle the past conflict, the girl agreed to show the guys a cooler outfit and they immediately melted away. Meanwhile, Jack's path led him to the 5-level Ant Army Hollow map, in which the quest was already taking place on the middle circle. One of the clan members shouted to the captain that he was running out of mana soon and he had used up all his pills, so he needed to retreat. The captain replied that right now, in the middle circle of the anthill, the soldiers couldn't be higher than level 4. They would soon be fine. Everyone agreed that it would be good if everything worked out like this. Then tomorrow we could try the inner circle. We had to look for objects. But one of the participants said that the soldiers in the inner circle are all level 5 and can also conduct group attacks. Lord of the Sky has a rule that prohibits players from entering places on maps whose level exceeds their personal level. They are already lucky. It is said that now the players who have entered the inner circle are all 5-level elite groups of the 5 majestic guilds. Each has a level 5 gold suit and 2 nurses to repair the damage taken, which requires a lot of strength. The elite squad of the great guilds went there because they were looking for rare equipment. They needed to kill monsters more persistently. Suddenly, the attention of some players was drawn to a guy who had quietly appeared in the circle, alongside the other players. The thief faced an army of ants in solo. The competitors could not believe their eyes. This player was level 1, but he easily tore the soldier ants apart. The fight stopped immediately. No one could believe that such a thing was possible. A level 1 thief couldn't have gotten here at all. The elf girl, who was the first to see Jack, realized that he was definitely trying to get somewhere. Was the boy doing exactly what each of them so desired for themselves? The thief was going to the inner circle. In front of the amazed spectators, the boy walked to the edge of the abyss and jumped. In their opinion, what this weirdo was doing was simply madness. 15 minutes before these events, the boy opened a map of the Ant Army Hollow while in the recreation area. The 5-level map, Ant Army Hollow, is for players above level 5 and was the only chance as re-entry was impossible for Jack. Outer, middle, and inner circle with each subsequent one, the level of difficulty gradually increases. After passing through the gate, the boy saw that the attacks of the ants of the inner circle were a real terror for all the players. But for Jack himself, complete with perfection, this area was the perfect place to level up. The guy decided to clear the inner circle. By the time the new party spawns, he will have already reached level 5, which is a big bonus to experience. Suddenly, the boy's attention was drawn to a fight between players of the 5th and 4th levels. The 5th level girl said that the opponent should not even think about returning for lost equipment. They had to get a new level first. You had to muster up the courage. After killing the player, you could still return here. The penalty for death for the Reds is the loss of random equipment. Doesn't this really make sense? There's no need to be a laughingstock. It's a disgrace to the guild. The Red player, in addition to losing experience, may receive a penalty by losing random items. The time this nickname disappears depends on the RK status level. The culprit made excuses that he was cleaning the middle ring, but he couldn't have imagined that there would be so many ants in the inner ring. His remarks were supported by other players. In the inner circle, even a party with a 5th level, one must be very careful because everyone could die. Because the guy lost 1 level and became level 4, they were no longer a 5-level party. He had nothing more to lose. In the end, the argument ended with the fact that the main thing is that everyone is alive. They don't get crucified in front of fools. Jack realized that it was the Misty Cliff Guild. Jack understood. This is one of the 5 great guilds. It seems that now only talented players from the alliance of the Great 5 have the strength to enter there. The guy was noticed and immediately started yelling at him for staring at him. He was a level 1 thief and shouldn't be eavesdropping on other people's conversations. Jack didn't have time to say anything in response, and a sword was already placed at his neck, threatening conflict. The party leader said that the guy wouldn't go any further. This wasn't a place where newcomers could survive like that. If the guy hopes for luck, then it was just a waste of time. First, you need to level up on the 1st and 2nd level maps. Jack realized that by all accounts, the players in this alliance weren't that bad and were much better than some of the pikemen. The guy decided to answer them and offered to take out the lost equipment and sell it to them. A partygoer who lost his weapon asked if the thieves with brains were okay. The party leader said through gritted teeth that they should never joke around. He was too low level to enter the inner circle. But Jack replied that he didn't have enough money right now and asked where their equipment had fallen. Maybe someone had already picked it up. The guy who lost the weapon said they deliberately chose one rock. A level 5 flame-breathing staff fell right there. Even if the thief has an invisibility potion, he still won't be able to get it, because by the time he gets to the location, the buff will have expired. But Jack's answer was adamant. He assured his interlocutors that they didn't have to worry about it and instantly disappeared. Finally, Jack said that for now, the players could rest and prepare the money. He wouldn't return until he found their thing. The players asked the commander how much they would have to pay the thief, but she replied that he would not be able to handle the task. Jack easily passed the outer circle and observed a large number of players trying to level up. He realized that it was not worth wasting his precious time on this and decided to go straight to the inner circle. Today, the guy's goal was to get to the 5th level, and he was determined. The middle circle greeted the boy with a spawn of new level 3 ants, who immediately rushed into the fight. But, within a second, the opponent was punished and cut in half by the guy's swift counterattack. Along the path Jack was traveling, his recent acquaintances from the foot of the mountain fought. But, unexpectedly, all the players' actions and plans came to naught, as the ant they were resisting was cut in half. The shocked players looked back in the direction from which the energy of the impact had come. They were very curious about what had just happened. It was, after all, Jack, who had just reached the middle circle and was moving rapidly towards the border with the inner one. The guy ran as fast as he could, not wasting a second, and used a back kick to make his movements even faster. The guild members, meanwhile, were competing in the middle circle. They almost finished off their opponent when they saw the thief. The elf shouted that this was that first-level thief. His route was impressive. The guy, Solo, was running rapidly towards the inner circle. It was real madness. Before the girl could say it, Jack jumped into the abyss of the inner circle, right into the center, which was swarming with ants, losing his health. The ant soldiers, of course, immediately rushed towards the enemy, but at the same second were cut in half en masse. Thanks to his new armor, Jack could easily deal with a large invasion of monsters and had already reached the second level. The guy read the notification with joy. Indeed, more experience was pouring into his personal account in the inner circle. Jack realized that now was the time to take advantage of the absence of players and finish off all the ants here. It was already getting dark. Almost all the ants in the middle circle had been killed, but unexpectedly, the players noticed what was happening in the inner circle. The players gathered at the border of the inner circle and watched the actions of the second-level thief. The party members, who had finally destroyed their opponents, were shocked that this thief was still alive. This guy solo cleared the inner circle, gaining increased experience, and already, starting from the first level, reached the fifth. Everyone was curious how long it took Jack to level up like that. No one knew what kind of equipment he had. He probably hid it. Finally, Jack could rest a little. He sat on a rocky ledge, holding the same staff, the flame breather. And to top it all off, he could finally say that he had reached the fifth level of self-cultivation. As soon as the system message appeared that Jack had reached level 5, the perfection kit automatically became unavailable to him. In the recreation area, meanwhile, it was already night. The participants were breaking up their parties because it was already more difficult to kill the ants. The participant who had lost his weapon started talking again for her, and the party leader grabbed him by the breasts, warning him once again to be quiet. Although their squad was the third echelon of the guild, but Misty Abyss was among the 5 major guilds, a first-level thief would not return the weapon. She shook the boy from side to side and shouted at him not to embarrass himself, and eventually he started screaming for them to let him go. The girl was very angry. She didn't want anyone to hope for the staff to return, but despite her efforts, there was still faith in the team. The guy who lost his weapon noted that, at first glance, the thief seemed completely believable in what he was saying. The party members paid no attention to the gossip already spreading in the recreation area about the thief who had fallen from the first to the 5th level. Messages from various people began to appear on the forum, admiring the work of an unknown thief. Finally, the party leader noticed the gossip that was going on. She became curious about what happened in the inner circle. Everyone was just talking about it. But the girl didn't have time to finish her thought. She was interrupted by the screams of her siblings. They saw Jack. Turning around, the party leader saw a boy covered in blood from head to toe, holding a staff in his hands and asking how much they were willing to pay for it. She looked in amazement at the level that was glowing above Jack's head, and he asked if she recognized it, because she didn't seem to recognize the staff either. The guy who lost his weapon recognized his flamethrower. All the party participants were amazed that the guy reached level 5 in one evening. Jack replied that he killed ants, and for that he was given more experience. The boy said that he had 3 coins, but the thief could take everything. The party leader wondered if, even if the equipment Jack had mentioned could be obtained, some additional steps would need to be taken. A system message announced that Jack had received 3 silver coins for his work, and the boy said that it had been a pleasure dealing with them. Jack quickly said goodbye to the party, despite their questions about his membership in some guild. The girl was still shouting that she could help him with a recommendation, and he would be able to get into the top 5 ahead of schedule. The Misty Abyss Guild was one of the Magnificent 5. When he first entered the game, these guilds were already full. In the past, he wanted to get a high level as soon as possible, spending 2 years on it. But after the opening of the pet system, the leveling is decreasing. On the other hand, after joining the guild, Jack can skip high-level equipment and special quests. Using guides, he found his own way of leveling up and can, indeed, reach the final level in a short time and start earning. So at least some money will appear in his life. In that life, joining the guild was just a pipe dream. But now everything was different. He had a choice, and the guy simply thanked him, saying that he would think about the offer. The guild was only a matter of time, but which one he would join would be up to fate. First, Jack wanted to get a set of equipment. In the Casfado area, the newcomers' village was, as always, crowded, and everyone offered to join them. Everyone was just running after him, asking for his participation in their parties. Level 5 players were really in great demand. In the rookie shop, everything was as before. The same guys discussing the thief and his possible return. The boys' contemptuous comments were interrupted by Jack's voice, who noted that they were still here and hadn't even leveled up 1 level. The guys began to stare enviously at the 5th level, which was glowing above Jack's head, not understanding how he managed to do it. The saleswoman kindly asked if she could help the guy this time, and Jack replied that he would like to sell some loot. For the next objective, he needs to sell everything he doesn't need. He asked for 20 enhanced inflammatory mixtures and 3 simple stealth potions. When everything was sold and bought, the girl thanked him for the purchase and noted that all the items were being moved to the guy's inventory. Jack also planned to buy something temporary from a gun dealer who was located next door. The guy decided to buy a 5-bladed smooth dagger for this mission. Leveling will now go quickly due to the fact that no one has opened the Ant Queen's Lair dungeon yet. After clearing it, the 5-level dungeon is restored. After this, the hidden dungeon Dark Forest will appear. It was discovered only 5 months after the game's launch. And all this was for the sake of collecting a stronger set of Dark Forest equipment for thieves up to level 10. The set of Persistent Miscellaneous. But it was in this life that the boy had every chance of being the first. A notification announced that he had found the lair of the Ant Queen. There were already quite a large number of soldier ants waiting for him in the nest, and he no longer had any special equipment. However, in a past life, after many trials, players appeared who knew quick ways to complete this dungeon. To do this, you need a simple stealth potion. After drinking it, the player becomes invisible. Duration: 9 seconds, so you need to get started. The boy jumped headlong into the abyss and started running past the soldier ants who didn't notice him. He had to hurry. When 9 seconds passed and a system message announced that the potion had expired, the ants immediately saw the uninvited guest. But none of the soldiers had time to react, because Jack immediately drank the next potion again. Despite the fact that the soldier ants could not, so far, get the guy, the system reported that a large number of ants were very angry. Thus, the boy advanced deeper and deeper into the lair and finally used the last stealth potion. All the ants he managed to run past rushed headlong after him, wanting to tear him to shreds. But Jack had almost reached his goal. He could already see the silhouette of the Ant Queen in the distance. After a few seconds, the queen was clearly visible ahead, and they finally met in person. Now the guy just needed to use the ant's special feature. Fear of Flame, Jack activated Enhanced Incendiary Mixture. One by one, he began to throw bottles around him in different directions, turning everything into flames. Jack knew well that the walls had a great weakness to flame and would burn with double force. Although the queen has a lot of health, she has no attacking abilities. Her entire existence is based on the continuous spawning of soldier ants. Now, with the soldier ants held back by a wall of flame, the queen was trapped alone with Jack, doomed. The guy took out all the remaining incendiary mixtures and said that, in his opinion, it would be better to fight one-on-one. It was no one's fault that the queen could be so easily deceived, and there was no need to accuse him of meanness. The remaining mixtures will be enough for the queen to enjoy the sensations to the fullest. Sometime later, a death cry was heard from the Ant Queen's lair, announcing another victory for Jack. A second later, a general notification informed that an unknown player had cleared out the Ant Queen's lair and incurred the hatred of the insect army. Sometime later, a guild council was convened. Some of its members were very unhappy with the reason for the meeting, considering it petty. The council chairman, Justin, said he was hoping someone had found some hidden equipment or a special NPC. Having said this, he looked at the girl and asked what exactly surprised Samantha so much. The party leader replied that Justin had not witnessed those events and therefore did not fully understand. The thief had progressed from level 1 to level 5. She was sure that his real strength was immense. Everyone needed to calm down. This notification should be received by all players on the platform. A hidden 5-level dungeon has been discovered and all players will rush there. They should also hurry up and find new promising talents. Justin agreed with his deputy. She was absolutely right. The guild should not waste time. He stood up from his chair and solemnly announced that the Misty Cliff Guild was heading to the Dark Forest location. Whether it was in the Misty Abyss Guild or any other of the Big Five, even on the streets, players couldn't help but tremble at this news. Everyone was curious about who would participate in this dungeon, why it was only opened now, and what equipment or inventory might be hidden there. Huge lines formed at the beginners' stores. Players wanted to get equipped as quickly as possible. Players with advanced levels also attacked the magician, and he was in a hurry to open the portal. No one understood what kind of pro had opened this location. There was a constant buzz of noise above the streets filled with players. Only the lazy one was not discussing the opening of a new dungeon. Finally, Jack arrived at the indicated location. The guy exited the teleporter looking around. As expected, it was full of people. This mission was a special task for the team. The players continued to arrive here in droves. It was actively discussed that there were no level restrictions for the mission. Absolutely anyone could enter. Jack knew that the dungeon had special conditions and rules. No restrictions for team members. Only players above level 5 could not enter. In order to get started, Jack needed to somehow find 4 people and form his team. He decided to look for the right people near the mission crystal. A notification announced that the boy could now use the dungeon portal. The light yellow portals nearby were all low level, while the gold-colored portals were of increased difficulty. At this level, the final boss had a mutation phase added, and the first teams to lose shared their impressions of the difficulty of the quest. Players lacked equipment. Level 5 armor did not protect. Even from simple boss strikes, the attacks were too strong. Jack heard the players around him talking about the fact that one of the losers was a member of one of the great guilds. The guy realized that soon this place would become a real arena for guilds. At this pace, solo players would have nothing to catch here. One of the newcomers shouted that representatives of the 5 great guilds responsible for searching for talented players had finally arrived. All the players looked around and saw silhouettes of people watching them from the wall. This time, the Misty Abyss Guild needed to find more talented players. Last time, they didn't have time to intercept a few newcomers and were taken away by other great guilds. Justin reasoned that if he found a couple of good recruits, he could apply for entry into the second echelon. He wanted Tiana's attention, suddenly. The dream girl interrupted his thoughts by saying that the other guilds had already arrived. Now, the important task of setting dungeon records lies on the shoulders of the first and second echelons. Their task is to look for outstanding newcomers. The hidden dungeon has attracted a large number of players. There must be potential recruits here, perhaps even the same thief. Tiana was looking forward to meeting this mysterious thief with an incredible aura. Every newcomer was surprised by the number of people in this location. It seems that this was the entrance to the dungeon. Soon, Jack's old acquaintances arrived at the entrance to the dungeon, along with an elf nurse. They were also looking for a party. The elf couldn't wait for the mission to begin. She was hoping to gain a level or two. A few minutes passed and Jack crossed paths with a dark red teleporter and announced that he would explain everything after they went inside. The players' reaction was priceless. They froze in place, believing they would die instantly. The dark red color of the portal meant the level was insanely difficult, and the dungeon challenge would begin in 3 seconds. Justin looked through the telescope at what was happening under the wall and didn't understand why so many people were gathered there. He called out to Tiana to look with him to make sure he wasn't hallucinating. Sure enough, a large number of players were gathering opposite something they couldn't see. Tiana, with some effort, was finally able to see that all the players were looking at the dark red portal of the highest difficulty. Justin couldn't believe his eyes. Someone dared to try the crazy level of difficulty. The dungeon had just been opened and someone had already dared to challenge the insane level. The guild members were curious as to who had done such a thing. Only people from the first echelon of the first guild were capable of doing so. After some thought, the guild council members decided that solo players could have decided to do this to test their luck. Even if it was true that it was impossible to pass this level, Tiana suggested going down and taking a look too. The crowd, meanwhile, had already completely surrounded Jack's party, trying to find out who dared to open a level of such complexity. Some members of the party began to get a little nervous. They wanted to enter the teleport immediately to avoid disgrace. Suddenly, all eyes turned to the members of the Misty Precipice who were approaching the center of the circle. The guild members were unhappy. Because of the gathering of solo noobs they had to wade through the crowd, did this event really deserve such attention? One of the players said that they didn't need to go there anymore because the party members had already entered the dungeon. It was a solo job. The newcomer, having looked around at who he was talking to, had completely lost the topic of conversation. It was Justin, and he was applying for admission to the Misty Cliff. Justin was dissatisfied and said that everyone had to go through the selection according to the rules. How could such a fat guy even dare to think that he would pass? The newcomer was unhappy with this reaction. He didn't like that because of a drop of power the guy could look at everyone like that. Competitors called Justin and company very clever when it came to recruiting newcomers, but each time no one suited them. Looking back, Justin and company saw that these were members of the third of the 5 guilds. White Jade. 3 of the 5 main guilds were now here. The newcomers could not decide which guild was better, but they agreed that the Misty Abyss should not be underestimated. But it seems that White Jade and Misty Cliff weren't very friendly with each other. The competition was over recruits. Tiana told Justin to calm down because this was not the place to be measured with words. You couldn't let others make fun of you. Unexpectedly, the girl from White Jade recognized Tiana, calling her the mage girl from the last monthly guild war. Of course, she recognized Tiana, but she wondered if she was Justin's girlfriend, if she really had such bad taste. She began to mock, saying that she regretted not finishing Tiana off that time, to which the orc girl replied that she didn't remember her at all. A second later, Tiana added that it was difficult to remember such a mediocre appearance and apologized for this remark. In response to her opponent's objections, she added that she didn't mean anything like that but simply stated the facts and turned around, preparing to walk away. Looking back one last time, she added that not all girls need a strong male shoulder, so her rival needs to work hard. These words completely knocked her opponent off her feet. She could barely contain herself. But Tiana's answer pleased the girl's brother. He approached his girlfriend from behind and put his hand on her shoulder, restraining her anger. The guy thought there was no point in worrying. He believed that with only a week left until the next guild war, he should focus on killing her and taking down a couple of levels. The two decided to wait for the solo players who opened the portal to return and ask them a few questions. Meanwhile, in the dark forest, Jack was faced with a lot of questions from his party members, who had no idea what to do. Jack replied that if the players continued in the same vein, the entire dungeon would converge here. There were quite intelligent mobs in Paradise Valley. Once again, the question arose of what each of them should do. Each of the party members was afraid of death. Jack reported that he had dropped equipment for everyone. He had matched it to their classes. Plus, it was well suited for this dungeon. A screen appeared in front of each player with a notification that they could choose a weapon, but first they had to dress accordingly. Among the chosen ones were Gauntlets of Dancing Flame, Sacred Staff of Restoration, Mantle of the Flame Exile, and Flame Armor of the Thief. The party members were impressed by such weapons, each of the items costing at least 10 silver coins and had fire damage. Jack explained that most of it fell to him while grinding mobs. Insects have a weakness to fire, now they can increase their damage. After these words, the boy finally charmed the elf nurse. She couldn't wait to start the quest. As everyone donned their weapons, the overall party spirit was heightened. Everything looked incredible. The most anxious member of the team was in a better mood than the rest, noting that he now had the power of a king. But even with that equipment, it was still an insane level of difficulty that left an unsettling mark. Meanwhile, Jack ordered all participants to come closer. Because the enhanced incendiary mixtures also needed to be divided among everyone, they were desperately needed. Due to restrictions, Jack was able to bring 60 bottles. Everyone will take 15. They are needed for the boss. Players started asking what to do with simple mobs. Jack replied that everyone should stay calm. They would discuss everything along the way. Now the guy was distributing the characteristic points evenly. Right now, he will be able to wear the same 5-level equipment set that was created for Dark Forest and cost a lot of money. In this life, by nature, the guy didn't want to waste a single second, so he decided not to waste any time here either. The thief from the party opened his mouth wide in surprise. He saw in front of him the same expensive set of equipment for fire damage in the shop. It was the Flaming Star set. Jack said that if the team wanted to clear dungeons, they had to know that everyone had their own characteristics. And when there are features, it means there are also weaknesses. If the party can find them, they will definitely win. The so-called crazy level can also be passed, and right now, they will go and be the first to pass it. Over the years of observation, players have discovered that all insects in heavenly confrontation have increased sensitivity. That is why, if they sense danger, they most often run away or hide in a safe place. For example, a common mob from the dark forest is the kamakiri praying mantis, a very cute-looking creature. Jack interrupted the elf nurse's enthusiasm, calling the girl a naive fool. Did she really not see prey under the kamakiri? If you're not careful in the dark forest, you can easily find yourself in the place of your prey, if they really wanted to be in its place. The praying mantis ran away. Insects in this game are quite cautious. If they had stayed in sight a little longer, the entire dungeon would have known about their appearance. The thief asked what their battle plan was. Even though insects have little health, they are very fast and hit hard. Mobs here have additional bonuses to health, attack power, and defense. With the effect of cuts, a couple of such blows and they can be carried forward with their feet. Jack completely agreed with the thief, but they would not fight everyone. The dark forest is divided into 3 sectors: the zone of spiders, butterflies, and praying mantises. Each sector of the forest protected its own species of insects. They had just seen the praying mantis with their own eyes. However, in addition to these insects, there was another special type of mob. This is a neutral mob, a crying bird. This bird was their key to passing the dungeon. The elf nurse was delighted, another cute creature that cost a fortune. Jack noticed that by taking advantage of the intimidation of the insect's natural enemy, they would take a secret path, easily reaching the boss's lair. After a few seconds, no one except Jack was serious anymore. It was starting to annoy him. He didn't want to repeat it several times. The guy realized that it seemed like he couldn't do without unnecessary hassle, and suggested that everyone give him a nickname to simplify communication. The thief said with a smile that his nickname was Invincible, but everyone could call him Victor. The second participant asked to be called Eternal Solitude, but the other players decided to call him Anti-Mainstream. The anxious player said his nickname is Long-Faced Handsome, but everyone can call him Long-Faced. The elf nurse said that everyone can call her Jane. She likes money and cool guys. All that was left now was to deal with the crying bird. Suddenly, Jack saw something on the tree. A second later, the boy was sitting on a branch and holding the giant bird by the paws with his hands, to the cries of its chicks. Jack tried to calm the mob down, saying he just wanted to feed it some tasty bugs. A system message announced that the bird was happy. To show your good intentions, you just need to feed the bird bugs, for which, as a reward, they will receive some items. The system notification announced that the party had received the crying Twitter flute players should remember there were no useless NPCs in the confrontation of heaven. Now, with this flute, they will be able to reach the boss's lair via a short route. But there will be a small surprise here too. Victor asked how Jack had learned about this short road and the flute. Had he ever encountered anything like it before? Eric lied that before coming here, he had visited the library in the main city of Casfido, read a couple of books, and written down some information. He couldn't tell his teammates that he had gone through the dungeon a large number of times and said that only after reading did the result appear. For example, this crying Twitter flute has a deterrent effect and could not be activated without the appropriate knowledge. Victor was amazed. It turns out that you could get such useful information in the library. No one expected that this was possible. There is a swamp at the edge of the dungeon. No one goes there specifically. Mobs are randomly scattered throughout the swamp. The short path is not so safe. Crying Bird is a special mob that hunts insects, their natural enemy, and the flute makes sounds that resemble the chirping of birds and scares enemies. Jane was delighted. They now had a flute and a short route. Everything was just great. They had to leave urgently. But the girl still wondered if there was no other way out than this swamp, where her clothes were getting dirty. Following the girl, the other party members began to whine. Jack instantly stopped the screams by asking if his comrades wanted to go back and fight the mobs. If group members aren't willing to make such a small sacrifice, they might not even dream of completing the game on insane difficulty. All team members must remain silent. This is where the monster zone begins, and party members must follow Jack exactly. The party leader's words had no effect on Jane. She was upset about her beautiful dress and the fact that it was wet between her legs. But the appearance of the giant spiders affected the girl instantly. She immediately fell silent. These spiders, clustered on both sides of the swamp, had a very frightening aura that affected everyone present, except Jack. The players saw the level 5 silk spiders begin to move in their direction, and Jack immediately began to play the flute even more actively. After a few seconds, the spiders stopped and trembled all over. This flute really had a strong effect on them. It seemed to the players that the silk spiders were truly afraid of the sounds of this flute, although at the same time they were very angry and wished them death. When the mobs fled, Longface concluded that the bird had proved to be quite useful. Such was the power of a natural enemy. Jack ordered his comrades not to lose their vigilance and to move forward faster after him. He warned that this path was not so easy. If someone got lost, they would encounter all kinds of insects in this dungeon, and they were everywhere, and that was the price to pay for the short journey. This statement from the guy really scared all the team members, who immediately started moving at an accelerated pace. Sometime later, Jack announced that they had arrived at the location. In a safe zone, the players were trying to get out of the swamp. Everything went pretty well. Even though it was a short trip, it still took them half an hour to get here. But the players were very tired and unhappy with how everything was going, and Jack asked them if the goal wasn't worth it. A system notification announced that the dungeon exploration was complete, and the party had reached the boss's lair, and the players saw a red portal in front of them. Jack was immediately overcome with nostalgia, and Longface wondered if the guy had read some kind of life hack to avoid the final boss. But, much to the boys' regret, Jack replied that this was impossible, that in the fight against the boss, they should rely only on their own strength. The boss was a clay dragon, the lord of the 5th level swamps, who, among other things, was also enormous in size. Using the general chat, each player took their position, preparing to carry out their part of the plan, which had to work. Jack asked everyone to listen carefully and remember what he said. With their level and equipment, it would be almost impossible to confront the boss. The enhanced incendiary mixtures that Jack gave them must be used during the boss's attacks in order to break through his defenses. By throwing 3 such cocktails at him, you can cause burning. The boss not only has a weakness to fire, he also has a bonus to attack power. Longface remarked that if it was as Jack said, where they were going to throw them, it was too dangerous. In addition, there was a limit on attack range in this location, but Jack asked his comrades not to worry about it. He reported that he had sent the players the coordinates of the desired positions, and within a second the boys and girls received a system notification about this. And about when to throw the mixture, they just have to wait for the signal from Jack. Victor was sure that this information reached Boss Jack from his connections, who had already completed the quest on an easier level. Boss Jack planned everything very well and we had to trust him. But it was very difficult to do so because all the players were very nervous. Victor really wanted to watch Jack fight the main boss of the dungeon. It was worth admiring. Jack understood that the boss of this dungeon was of an insane level of difficulty. He was a head and shoulders above ordinary bosses. They hadn't seen this boss in a very long time. Jack had already forgotten how many times they had fought against each other in their past lives. Upon reaching level 5, he gained a new ability, Stacking Combo, which was a passive skill. If his passive doesn't crash and builds up, he'll be able to use the special equipment skill along with the new dash skill. The clay dragon, the master of the swamps, finally opened his eyes after the boy's attack. A system notification informed Jack of this. The dragon opened its mouth and shouted loudly that the vile human would regret daring to disturb its sleep. They did meet again. The guy, after another attack, tried to escape from the clutches of the main boss. Avoiding the giant paws, Jack used them as a springboard to deliver another swift blow. The guy developed such great speed that he could inflict numerous cuts while avoiding the monster's blows. The clay dragon was obviously tired of enduring the pain and, opening its mouth, spat out a stream of acid towards the boy. Jack managed to avoid the flow of green mass. He had expected such tricks from this giant monster. One could argue that he knew them all by heart, and that would be a fair assumption. He remembered the limits of each of this monster's tricks and knew how to counter them, the main thing being to get a sufficient distance away. When Jack reached the right distance, he activated a crowning blow to the back and found himself at the decisive point of their duel. A whole hour had passed, and there was still no news from the party leader. Jane was very sad without activity. Anti-mainstream also noted that an hour had passed and Jack must have fled as soon as the duel began. But Victor believed in his boss. Judging by the information about the team's condition, his health bar was still full. This is what raised suspicions. Had he really not fought the boss? Why had his health not declined, even after so much time? All conversation fell silent when the group of players heard Jack shout, demanding that they get ready. Turning to face the valley, the players saw a column of dust covering the entire horizon. It seemed that these two were already approaching. Jack ran ahead and shouted at the top of his lungs that the players should not rush into the attack. They should wait until the guy led the boss inside. It was absolutely impossible to make a mistake right now. One wrong blow and anyone could become a corpse. The players looked at the boss's health. It turns out that Jack had taken away 2/3 of his health. No one understood how he managed to do it. After a few seconds, Boss Jack shouted for the players to prepare for the attack. They must throw the monster in full program. The party members simultaneously picked up their bottles of the mixture and began to throw them at the clay dragon. A moment later, the main boss was burning like a candle, stunned by the team's massive attack. Jane was pleased with herself. She liked the feeling of destroying ugliness with a wad of money. Jack shouted that the boss was entering the final stage, after which no one would be able to throw incendiary mixtures at him. This was a special ability. A second later, a notification announced that the target for the enhanced incendiary mixtures had been lost, leaving players confused as to what they should do now. Jack ordered them to take the remaining incendiary mixtures and throw them at him immediately. The shocked party participants began to contradict him in this decision, but the guy persistently forced them to do it. The first thing that flew at Jack was Victor's bottle, and it was no surprise the guy very quickly trusted this mysterious stranger. With these actions, the players activated the Flaming Star Kit property, making Jack immune to fire damage for 30 seconds. Meanwhile, there were still a lot of players near the portal, waiting for the crazy solo party to return. Everyone waiting wondered what might have happened inside the dungeon. These players were probably about to leave at any moment. Justin thought that these solo players were just hiding inside for so long. Maybe they were just scared and couldn't get out. If it weren't for Tiana, he would have left long ago. Why wait and watch another failure? Wasabi Man pointed out that, on the other hand, spending so much time there was also an achievement. They would also be stuck for an hour and a half trying to survive. Justin looked at his interlocutor carefully and asked if he still thought solo players would be able to complete this dungeon. Regarding that special thing that Wasabi Man knocked out last time in the 8th level dungeon, he still hasn't shown it in action. Although the colleague tried to hide it, even the deputy head of the guild became interested in the item. The man replied that, unfortunately, the item was disposable. Wasabi Man planned to use it to increase his own rank in the arena. The energy breakthrough device was perfect for this. Justin found it boring. Any player could enter the arena, and he had no desire to participate in such quests. But still, there was one thing that interested Justin more than anything else in the world. And literally, it wasn't a thing at all, but a girl. The love of his life, the beautiful Tiana. He told her that she needed to turn around. There would be nothing interesting here. But the girl was still looking through the binoculars. In the dungeon, the final battle was coming to an end. The clay dragon, the Lord of the Swamps, had entered the final stage. Victor, continuing to throw the Molotov cocktail, shouted that Jack was too careful. One hit, and he could have been a corpse. The guy knew that after the boss entered the final stage, the only thing he would need to concentrate on was the next attack. It was all supposed to be over in 30 seconds, when a powerful explosion erupted, sending huge blocks of stone flying into the air. Jack ran as fast as he could towards the clay dragon, which also went on the offensive. Along the way, the boy tried to break as many Molotov cocktails as possible, redirecting them towards the clay dragon. Anti-mainstream was stunned. Jack used microcontrol to avoid the boss's attacks and bounce bottles in his direction. Not only anti-mainstream was surprised, Victor also couldn't believe his eyes. The guy's microcontrol technique was impressive. The notification announced that the accumulated combo power was 3659. Jack activated Rapid Stream, Rapid Flow, a powerful attack. The body is like a turbulent flow, and the movements are equal in speed to light. Jack began to climb the mountain. The guy additionally activated an all-consuming spark, and after a few seconds the monster was burning, as if during a volcanic eruption. The final blow of this duel was an all-consuming spark. The damage increased fivefold. The boss's roof was blown away. Jane was amazed. Their team defeated the boss, the Clay Dragon, Lord of the Swamps. She remembered that Jack had said something to her before the fight. The guy asked if she had learned the healing skill. He gave her a book with a new skill called Dispelling. She had to learn it. When it's all over, Jack will need the help of an elf nurse, and he will need to act very quickly. And now the girl understood exactly what kind of help the head of their party needed, and she was ready to provide it. The girl activated the Dispel and Heal skills at the same time. She directed her energy at Jack, and he immediately began to heal. The 30 seconds of invulnerability were over. Fortunately, the girl's treatment and dispersion were done in time. Looking at the shocked faces of his team, the guy explained that his style is called all or nothing. But, looking at the body of the boss, who was no longer moving, the guy noted that for now, this was the limit for him. The audience, who were waiting for some kind of dynamic, had completely lost patience. They began to disperse, thinking that nothing would happen. The members of the Majestic Guild were also losing patience, but they had to wait until the very end. Their task was to find out and learn everything about the insane complexity of the quest. Suddenly, all the chatter was interrupted by a notification congratulating the team that had completed the Dark Forest dungeon on insane difficulty. None of the players watching could believe it was true. But the table didn't lie. Solo players really did clear the dungeon. One might say that this was impossible, but the record table said otherwise, even though the information about the players' team was hidden. These crazy weirdos, who probably didn't belong to any guild, were actually able to complete the most difficult dungeon level. The members of the Misty Cliff Guild also approached Tiana to ask how this was possible. The girl realized that this team, or rather the team captain, was a very special player. She was curious who led them. She set herself the goal of meeting this person in person. All eyes turned to the team emerging from the dark red teleport, those who had managed to complete the dungeon on insane difficulty. It was exactly them, those solo players who completed the mission and returned. The group of players who first completed the insane difficulty level were all curious about which guild they belonged to, but the information was hidden. The party members did not expect to become so famous at this point. They were surrounded by a huge crowd. But all the flatterers were interested in was whether they could share any secrets to successfully clearing the crazy level. The party participants began to shyly answer all the questions without revealing any secrets. Jack had expected such excitement. He was glad that he had time to ask everyone to hide information about himself. He decided to distract his comrades from extraneous conversations, saying that they still needed to discuss the division of trophies and plans for the future. The members of White Jade interrupted all conversations, saying that apart from the fiery equipment, the players had nothing special. Surely each of them had already heard about the third guild of the Magnificent Five, White Jade. The man introduced himself as the deputy captain of the third echelon. Jack had actually heard of this team. They were very arrogant. Using the glorious name of their guild, they completely cleared locations of mobs. Solo players who disagreed with such tyranny died in PvP, while others had to resign themselves to silently enduring all the insults. At one time, Jack also suffered a lot at the hands of the members of this guild. He suffered greatly from them. Longface and Anti-Mainstream were very interested in the attention of White Jade, wondering if they really wanted to invite them to join the guild. The captain noticed that everyone had hidden information about themselves. Probably none of them were members of the Magnificent Five Guild. He asked who was in charge. When the other players pointed out Jack, the captain's attention shifted to him. He was surprised that the thief was leading the party. There were 2 hours left before the server closed, and Jack didn't want to waste his time on idle chatter. They needed to go. This disregard for his person greatly angered the White Jade captain, who realized that he was talking to Jack at that moment. Anti-mainstream also tried to draw the boy's attention to the fact that such respected personalities were approaching him. The deputy captain flared up with anger. She believed that the guy should have shown at least a drop of respect and answered the question. If players haven't entered anywhere yet, they can accept the White Jade's offer with gratitude and honor. If they weren't actually members of the guild, then to begin with, they could join a guild that was subordinate to White Jade. But Jack's response was the same for all their suggestions. He replied that he was not at all interested in what they were offering. The amazed players in his party gaped at the idea that this weirdo would refuse such a chic option. The captain of the White Jade was very angry at this answer. He gave the guy a chance, and he spat right in his face. If this thief thought he was so cool, he should have mustered up the courage and fought him right now. The players' spectators were unpleasantly surprised. This captain was completely out of his mind. The whole conversation was turning into a circus. A system notification informed Jack that he had to accept or reject a duel proposal from a stranger, but the captain insisted on his decision. The players at the party were worried. They wished Jack to be more careful and decided, just in case, to move away. But the guy calmly and evenly replied that he had absolutely no time for these showdowns. The captain replied that even if he had to become a red player, no one would do anything to him anyway. A second later, he began attacking with the Exploding Flame Sphere spell, which killed the opponent and helped avoid the penalty. Jack wasn't going to give this arrogant scumbag such an easy victory over himself. He prepared to defend himself. The captain was furious. He wanted this strange thief to die, but the boy, angered, showed great speed. And this speed greatly impressed the White Jade members, forcing them to retreat. The thief dared to quickly avoid his attack. Unexpectedly, the boy was aided by the spell Impassable Thorny Vine, which cut through the ground between the participants in the duel. The person who stepped into the duel was none other than Tiana, and this girl was determined. The captain and his deputy gritted their teeth. It was that bitch from Misty Cliff again. Something told Tiana that this was the same boy that Sister Samantha had spoken about. The vice captain of the White Jade shouted, demanding an explanation from Tiana as to why the girl had intervened in this duel. Tiana replied that the thief was a friend of the Misty Cliff Guild. Was White Jade really going to sow discord between the two guilds? The captain of the White Jade and his deputy gritted their teeth. A member of the Misty Cliff crossed their path again. This world was cramped. The vice captain said that Tiana should cool down or she would regret interfering. No one would notice her chicken head in this crowd. But the captain turned to the girl and ordered her to put down her weapon. Now was not the time for such clashes. So Tiana was protecting this thief from the face of the entire Misty Cliffs, which was very interesting. The monthly guild war was to take place next Sunday, so they would compete until their last breath. The girl was not impressed by the captain's words at all. She agreed that in that case they would see each other in the war. The thief and the member of the Misty Abyss watched as the captain and his deputy walked away. The woman tried to find out why they were going. The captain explained that he could not take responsibility for starting a war between the guilds. If the top finds out about this, he wouldn't get away with it, so Tiana should wait for them to meet on the battlefield. They'll have fun. All the members of his party ran up to Jack, asking if he was okay. They were really scared for him. Tiana knew that they were not guild members. They would not hide information because it was one of the many ways to help their guild reach the top. Besides, no guild would dare to provoke the members of White Jade. Making enemies of the top guilds is not a good idea. If Tiana hadn't made it in time, the guy wouldn't have just avoided trouble. He now had a debt. Jack knew the girl was right, no matter how strong the player was. If the entire guild was against him, he asked what she wanted. Tiana smiled slyly and said that she wanted to ask the guy to help her with something. In other words, if the guy briefly joins the Misty Cliff Guild and participates in the monthly guild war, the girl will gratefully reward him, or she may give him loot and resources that she can get somewhere. Tiana thought that they needed to study this thief's abilities well, because in the future he might still be useful to them. To begin with, you need to persuade him to at least join the guild, and then try to keep him as long as possible, but Jack unexpectedly refused. He said he had no intention of joining guilds anytime soon, even temporarily. He would have to accept rules that would restrict him. Tiana said that, as the deputy commander of the echelon, she would try to provide the boy with the most comfortable conditions possible. She was simply asking for help in the war, but Jack believed that Tiana's guild did not need help at all. He was just a 5th-level thief. He was of no use to them. But the girl didn't need his abilities. She and White Jade had been rivals since the early stages of the game when they fought for influence. As the guilds grew, small frictions gradually grew into more serious conflicts, and this continues to this day. Even now, the boy was witnessing it. Not to mention that she sided with the guy, she will have to answer for her actions at the monthly war. That's why Tiana asked Jack to protect her from death and losing level on the battlefield. She must hold him back. Jack replied that in that case, the girl could simply not participate in it. And Tiana noticed that the boy's voice was indifferent. Couldn't the thief really be hurt by anything? She said that participating in war was one of the main ways to gain guild glory points. The girl's explanation was interrupted by a notification that a stranger wanted to add her as a friend. Jack said that was for a start, and he would think about the rest. Although Tiana took this step to use it, she brought trouble upon herself. Jack said he would respond before the start of the guild wars. The girl was very happy about this turn of events. She thought to herself that perhaps her tactics had finally worked. She said she would help with a recommendation and was sure the guy would be able to pass the entrance exam, as long as he answered as soon as possible. Despite Jack's disgruntled mumble in response, Tiana added that she would wait for the message. Before Jack closed the information to his friends, she managed to notice that he was younger than her. The boy was very capricious. The girl was so caught up in Jack's joining the guild that she didn't notice Justin, who was watching this scene. The guy was jealous. While Jack hid his personal details, the party members persistently questioned him about the topic of their conversation with Tiana. They asked if the girl had set her sights on him, and Jack muttered in response that he would leave them without their loot if they continued. Only in the dark forest on crazy difficulty does the equipment he needs drop. This time, they were very lucky. The guy decided that he would keep the gloves from the skillful assassin's kit, and that everyone would share the other loot and money equally. For thieves up to level 10 who are dexterous, this set will be the best in terms of stats, and, for a while, will make his life easier. Jack was only interested in building the set as quickly as possible, but all the other players were surprised by his generosity. When asked to split the rewards equally, Jack remarked that he didn't need the other loot. He had underestimated his experience, so the others leveled up. This information greatly encouraged the party participants. Each of them checked their level, and everyone received a raise. Jack planned that before reaching level 6, they would need to go into the dungeon a couple more times until they had fully assembled the necessary kit. He said goodbye and woke up in the real world in a good mood. So far, everything was fine. This helmet allowed the body to fully rest during the game. The helmet also had no effect on real life or the gameplay. The boy greeted his grandfather and offered to help with the cleaning. Over the next 3 days, the party played through the Dark Forest dungeon over and over again on insane difficulty. And finally, on the 3rd day before he left, Jack gathered all the other pieces of the skillful assassin's kit. As for this funny foursome, their paths were destined to diverge, although they didn't like it. Jack said that they would still have a chance to meet. He didn't have time to waste time. He needed to start moving towards the next goal. For this purpose, he set himself the Palace of the Singing Moon, a rather picturesque place, a level 10 map. The thing he needed, despite everything, had to be in this very location. As he descended into the valley, the boy reflected that he needed to be especially careful in this place. Here you could meet evil spirits of the corpse seekers of high level, for example, like this one, which was 4 times taller than him. The guy could still handle one of them, but if a whole crowd of them attacked him, Monster Jack would die very quickly. It's a good thing he has the Agile Assassin's Kit. With a bonus to agility and perception, you have to use the landscape to get around them. The guy didn't come here to kill the local level 10 boss. So far, he didn't have enough strength for such a test. He had to level up first. What was more important was to get the skill book that was located in the waterfall area. This skill was Evil Spirit Invisibility. In that life, all the thieves in this game dreamed of it. The guy tried to carefully move through this location, looking for the item. But unexpectedly, he came across the remains of evil spirits. Did level 10 players really get to this location? You should have relaxed a bit, they were already on your heels. Despite all the obstacles, the guy finally reached the right place. He saw the red color already flashing ahead. As expected, the box was still intact, his goal closer than ever. Upon opening this chest, the boy will immediately receive a debuff. A system notification informed him that upon opening this chest, the boy will be cursed. Jack felt a little uneasy. But of course the book was worth it, he had to get it. The find took away 60% of all characteristics. The guy opened an unlocked cursed treasure chest. All his stats decreased by 60%. The effect wore off after 5 hours and 59 minutes. It would take Jack some time to learn the skill. He needed to find a safe place now. The boy's thoughts were interrupted by a voice, the man claiming that he knew about the existence of an idiot who would open this box. Looking back, Jack saw three guys calling themselves the main genius. Another one received the curse instead. The uninvited guests said that Jack wouldn't believe it, but they had been waiting for a jerk like him for several days. The squad leader laughed and ordered the boy to give them the item so they could see the contents of the box. Jack realized that he had miscalculated and not foreseen the ambush. Now, of course, he had the invisibility of an evil spirit. If it weren't for the debuff, he would definitely deal with these three scumbags. But having received 60% to all characteristics, it will be problematic. Also, the levels of these three were higher. One was 11th level and two were 10th level. Was it worth sacrificing the book to save your life? The squad leader admitted that he was counting on a team fight. It never even occurred to him to encounter a lone fighter. The guys saw that the attackers were members of the White Jade, typical behavior of players of this guild. They still wouldn't leave him alive. Has the majestic White Jade guild really fallen so low that it steals loot from solo players? The guy asked what would happen if he didn't give up the book. The members of White Jade were surprised by the guy's knowledge, and they were also surprised by the stubbornness of this thief. In this case, all the talk was in vain. One of the squad members pointed an arrow at Jack, noting that he would die now. The guy had no choice but to fight. He activated a backstab. The notification informed that the opponent could defend without penalties. Jack decided to fight and strike first, to at least somehow maintain the effect of surprise. But the thief's tactics were quickly exposed, and the squad leader skillfully repelled the boy's cunning attack with a brave block. Jack realized that his characteristics were too low because of the curse. Even his speed had decreased, and now he was the turtle's brother. The head of the White Jade squad noted that the guy had balls of steel, and he decided to attack them in such a state. A moment later, Jack received a blow of great force, which deprived him of 30 points of health. At the same moment, another member of the enemy squad fired an arrow in the direction of the boy with an aimed shot. Jack could see perfectly well that he had already been driven into a dead end. He tried to calmly consider what could help him in this situation. But while the boy was thinking it was impossible to stand still, he activated the backstab again. But his reaction failed him, and this time, one of the opponents came around from behind and delivered a dangerous blow, depriving Jack of 120 health points. The attacker shouted that the boy could have given them the book and died a quiet death. But now they will get this item directly from his miserable corpse. The squad leader has activated the Sword of Justice. The man promised to calm the boy down. By cutting his tendons, Jack will no longer be able to resist. The boy felt that he couldn't let this scumbag use the calming skill. Despite being targeted once again with an arrow, Jack activated the Rapid Flow ability. The archer laughed, shouting that the boy probably wanted to be easy prey. If indeed this was true, then the thief went to the right address. The guy would help him commit suicide. Jack, once again, activated backstab and instantly ran the dagger blade across the archer's back, depriving him of 50 health points. This turn of events really surprised the attacker. The guy could fight under such a harsh debuff. But what if he didn't receive it? This guy used the time his skills activated to dodge attacks. Unparalleled microcontrol. The squad leader was furious. He ordered all his charges to immediately activate and fight the thief. The guy heard that he ordered to surround him and realized that there were no other options besides the elementary fog of war bomb. This bomb was activated, and all players within range could not see and select targets, giving the guy a 3-second head start. The leader of the White Jade squad shouted that the boy's actions were just pathetic tricks. After a few seconds, the man cast a dispel spell, and the fog from the bomb instantly disappeared. Jack, meanwhile, didn't waste a second. He activated a disposable item, a cat hook. The attackers saw that the guy was trying to escape. They urgently needed to stop him. The archer made an aimed shot. An energy arrow hit Jack in the shoulder right in flight, causing him to lose his balance and drop the cat hook. Falling into the abyss, in which a river flowed in a turbulent stream, he imprinted in his memory what he would remember about these scoundrels. The White Jade squad was disappointed. They never got the box, even though the thief himself was most likely already a corpse. The squad leader was sure that they would definitely meet again, but next time luck would be on their side. A few minutes later, Jack's hand appeared above the water, near one of the gentle banks of the river. The guy, with his last strength, tried to climb ashore. His strength was almost exhausted. Fortunately, this time it worked out. He had prepared in advance and spent a tidy sum on an instant recovery potion. If Jack hadn't done this, he would have died falling from such a height. The thief didn't want to mess with the White Jade, but they insisted. Tiana was sitting in her office and, unexpectedly, saw a call from a friend. Picking up the phone, she asked who she was dealing with. Hearing Jack, the girl melted. He finally contacted her. She waited for a response from him for several days. The guy asked for help in organizing his entrance exams. he decided to accept her offer. Tiana couldn't believe her luck and asked when he would be free. Just tell him, and she would arrange everything. The girl's stormy stream of emotion was interrupted by Jack's voice, who said that it had to be done right now. Players gathered in the foggy examination area. Each of them received a notification in the guild channel. The meeting was for the sake of one person. There were rumors that it might be some rich man, but Vice Captain Tiana is not someone who treats the rich in any special way. Soon, Jack and Tiana arrived at the arena. The guy asked why there were so many people here. She replied that the guy was the first to take the exam alone. The guy on one of the tiers saw familiar faces from the beginner's shop and wondered why they were here. They would be better off raising their level. He was annoyed by the crowd, but Tiana asked him to get used to it. Compared to the crowd after completing the dungeon, there was almost no one here. The girl believed with all her heart that her assumptions about this guy were correct. He was truly a treasure. Samantha also recognized the guy. She still couldn't believe that he was the first to walk through the dark forest on such an insane difficulty. The girl considered him one of a kind, and Tiana supported these thoughts. Having such talent nearby, she would definitely be able to achieve her ultimate goal. Tiana assured Jack that passing the entrance exam would be a very simple task. The examiners were already waiting for them on the other side of the bridge. Justin smiled. It was the same thief Tiana had been talking about all along. He pretended he barely knew the guy. Tiana explained that the admission process was as follows. The members of the unit standing behind Justin were in charge of the entrance exam. Jack just needs to last 10 minutes in a fight against the examiner. He must choose one of them as an opponent. But unexpectedly, the girl's explanation was interrupted by Justin, who asked if the guy would mind if he personally conducted the check. Tiana was shocked. It was a regular exam. There was no point in such actions, but Justin insisted on his participation. Justin wanted to humiliate the guy. The girl was confused. The difference was 3 levels, but Jack replied that he was fine with everything. He said that it didn't matter to him whether this or that guild member would be the examiner. He needed to hurry up and get started. Tiana shouted that it was a division captain 3 levels above the guy, but Jack just wanted to finish this boring exam faster. Justin didn't like the fact that these two were talking to each other. He wanted to humiliate his competitor as much as possible in front of his beloved girlfriend. The girl said that the exam field was in the forest nearby and put a bracelet on the boy, an evaluation device that every guild has. The device can determine the candidate's starting score according to level. Said he wanted to end it as soon as possible and continue to level up. But Tiana was very worried. The audience had already taken their seats and were sharing their impressions of Captain Justin's participation. Justin explained that the time limit was 10 minutes, to be fair. He would show no mercy. Jack replied that this was the right decision. Justin should use all his strength. That archer and the guy is a thief. They are enemies. After being notified of the invitation to the guild entrance exam, Justin asked if Jack really considered him an ordinary archer. The guild captain shouted that the boy would pay for his bad jokes. He was just a petty thief. Jack, looking at his opponent, reasoned that Justin was probably a speed-type archer with an ice bow for slowing down. For opponents of his level, he was indeed a problematic enemy, but the reasoning had to be put aside. Justin took his first step in the game and activated Quick Shot. Jack was unpleasantly surprised. From the very beginning, the opponent used such a fierce attack against him. Justin watched as the boy tried to fend off his attacks and shouted that he wouldn't be able to pass this exam with blocks alone. Justin was ready to punch through each of these blocks. After these words, the captain fired another arrow towards the guy. But Jack was so unbreakable, he played his own game and prepared his blade for a counterattack. So far, this tactic has worked very well for health protection. The boy could not fight fully while the curse was in effect. This time, his blade, upon encountering the opponent's attack, caused a powerful explosion. This captain caused an ice explosion that took away 120 health points from the guy. The opponent was very fierce. Of all the spectators, only Tiana was rooting for the strange thief. He simply had to hold out for those 10 minutes. The girl looked at the monitor, which was counting the readings of the bracelet on the guy's hand. The guy's current overall score was 85, and he said he had a curse hanging over him that lowered his stats by 60%. Despite all of the above, the guy still had a very high overall score. Jack had about 6 minutes left if he was in good shape, no matter how high his score was. Justin reloaded his bow with arrows for another strike. This boy was already starting to annoy him, but Jack wasn't going to make the task any easier for him. He skillfully dodged the shots, trying to get closer to his opponent. Justin threatened to turn the thief into a sieve if his attacks still weren't enough. Jack, on the other hand, didn't understand what was happening to this premature baby. His hostility was written on his face. The guy was behind Justin in a moment. The debuff was really annoying him. The casting speed was slowed down. To the boy's surprise, His opponent reacted with a smile. It turns out Justin expected Jack to come up behind him. The thief was now in for an unexpected, unpleasant surprise. Justin activated a blinding counterattack. It reduced the effectiveness of all attacks for 2 seconds, and also reduced visibility to 1 meter, so Jack couldn't see anything. He understood that precisely because of this, he would not be able to dodge the enemy's arrows now. A second later, Justin's repeated attack with arrows deprived the boy of another 90 points of health. But Jack only laughed. He couldn't call this an exam. His opponent was simply taking out his anger on him. Justin replied that this was all nonsense. But it was Jack's tactic. He needed to stall for a little longer. Then he would be able to hold out for 7 minutes. The guy decided to change his plan of action. Suddenly, he turned around and ran towards the forest. Justin, at first, didn't even understand what was happening. The captain ran after the candle in his superiority. But the boy replied that he had no reason to lure Justin here, other than to make him look like a loser in front of the guild. Justin shouted that there was 1 minute left in the exam and they were going to see who was the loser. Jack had to beg. The guy just smiled in response. The curse had expired, the debuff had been removed, and he no longer wanted to run away. He said that he would need 1 minute for Justin to figure out whether their guild was worth his joining. Tiana saw that the scoring device was responding. Jack's score was rising rapidly. They were close. The girl was amazed by the number of points she saw on the screen. It was not so capable. Justin, seeing that the girl of his dreams was watching the fight, completely lost his mind. He could not allow Jack to look down on him. This brat couldn't treat him like that in front of his beloved. Now he has to blame himself for Justin killing him. Justin turned off the exam mode, and Tiana, seeing this, screamed, trying to stop him. But the girl's pleas were not heard. Because Jack touched the captain's ego, Justin activated Accurate Shot. Jack, avoiding his opponent's attack, instead activated a backstab and instantly found himself behind Justin's back. Justin asked if the guy still hadn't realized that this trick was useless against him, and began to activate a counterattack. But Jack interrupted him mid-sentence, calling Justin slow. He stabbed his opponent in the back with a dagger. A notification announced that the skill cast had been interrupted. The captain didn't expect the boy to be so fast, as if his speed had multiplied several times in an instant. Justin was 3 whole levels higher in rank and couldn't believe that this was even possible. Jack kicked the boy, and he flew a long distance to the other side of the clearing and fell face down. Jack approached his opponent and asked what he had said earlier. Who would kill whom now? This dialogue was interrupted by Wasabi Man, who ordered the boy to put away his dagger, as the captain's death would not improve his exam results. The guy smiled sarcastically in response and asked why, in that case, he shouldn't take care of the 2 of them. Wasabi Man was very surprised. He asked if the guy wanted to say that he was going to fight both of them at the same time. Justine was also outraged by Jack's audacity. He knelt down and remarked that he could defeat the guy on his own. Wasabi Man reasoned that Justin had already gotten away with it very well, but it would be nice to know the true strength of this thief. The man decided to accept the boy's challenge and see if he had enough strength to defeat him. But Justin shouted to his friend that he must be deaf, because he said he could handle the guy one-on-one. Wasabi Man replied that now was not the time to be silly, and Justin would not be able to handle it alone. He could understand that because he was a thief himself. The guy's energy, judging by the way he was carrying himself confidently right now, indicated that Jack wasn't giving it his all. Tiana noted that this was enough to pass the exam. But what was more important was that the boy had embarrassed him in front of her. Justin said they knew when to stop, but he thought to himself that he would just trample this snotty. He shouted to Wasabi Man that he wanted to use the same trick and rushed to attack. He thought that Justin had gone completely crazy, and along with his reputation, he decided to lose the remnants of his mind. Justin longed for the thief's death. He wanted him to try his hardest blow. Jumping into the sky, he generated an array of ice arrows which formed a dome, inside which the victim was struck by ice arrows. Tiana, seeing what Justin was doing, went cold with worry. As soon as the arrows took the shape of a dome, Jack would become completely uninterested. Justin shouted for Wasabi Man to, at all costs, not let the boy get out of the trap. He was preparing for Jack to break through. He expected the guy to show him what he was going to do against 2 opponents. After waiting a few seconds, he activated the backstab, instantly being behind Jack and striking him. After stabbing the boy with a dagger, Wasabi Man begged for forgiveness through his teeth. Tiana is confused. Wasabi Man is one of the commanders and the best thief of the 3rd echelon. Most of the higher-ranking thieves are inferior to him. Still, Jack was probably too cocky this time. She felt really sorry for the guy. Justin was already excited. He said that Wasabi Man made a good shot, but he needed to hurry up because the arrows would soon hit him. Wasabi Man stood next to Jack. Something was wrong. It It felt like he had poked cotton wool. A moment later, he couldn't believe his eyes. This boy had tricked him. Wasabi Man was trapped, losing control of his body for 2 seconds from the effects of relentless terror. In addition, Justin's blow would have activated the arrows, and the man was in for a big mess. It was too late to escape. The ice had already begun to bind his body. The third-tier thief could not move at all. A moment later, Justin's arrows began to strike, stripping Wasabi Man of health points. It so happened that the only one who came under fire from Justin's arrows was Wasabi Man, while Jack managed to avoid the guy's attack in an inexplicable way. Justin reasoned that it was a good idea to learn this skill before coming here. But Jack interrupted these thoughts. He said that next time, before such an attack, the guy should not forget to immobilize the opponent. When Justin asked how the guy ended up next to him, he replied that he didn't have to explain anything to such a fool. At the moment when they were about to attack Jack, he decided in advance to use the invisibility of the evil spirit, and the opponents attacked him. Tiana stared in amazement at the picture that appeared before her eyes. This skill that Jack activated was truly impressive. She asked Jack to let Justin go and told him that they would pass the exam. But the girl was interrupted by the voice of Wasabi Man, who shouted that the exam was not over yet. The effect of the ice arrow array had ended. The man activated the thing he knocked out in the dungeon. He had originally planned to use it in the arena, but decided that Jack was more worthy of his challenge. He had 15 seconds during which his strength increased by 90%. Pointing his dagger at the thief Jack, Wasabi Man said that the boy must show his true strength. Jack replied with a smile that it seemed that the third-tier thief was really interested in him. A second later, Jack struck Justin in the neck, which deprived the guy of 300% of his health points. Tiana screamed in shock, but Jack told her not to worry. He had just knocked out Justin with a critical hit. The girl stopped in place and didn't know what to do. Jack ordered Justin to be pulled aside so that he wouldn't get in the way. The guy decided to accept Wasabi Man's challenge, to tear open the veil of secrecy just to fight and decide who is better. Jack really missed this feeling. He had felt it many times in his past life. After endless attempts, the thief Jack was finally becoming stronger, and he liked it immensely. Tiana, meanwhile, tied Justin up with her skill and watched the match unfold. The girl looked at the monitor in amazement. She couldn't understand what was wrong with the computing device. Something incomprehensible was happening with the scores. Tiana couldn't understand what was happening. Jack's indicators were rapidly increasing. There must have been some kind of malfunction. Jack, meanwhile, stood opposite Wasabi Man. He agreed to these 15 seconds of increased enemy strength. In a past life, that past Jack, who tried to hold his place among many first-class players, he invested the remnants of his own faith and dignity in endless battles for glory. He would climb out of his skin during competitions and battles just to prove his skill. And this feeling, so familiar, always made him move forward, despite all obstacles. At this moment, the opponent standing opposite Jack evoked old memories, and the boy felt a mad surge of energy in his heart. Despite the shocked looks of everyone present, the boy felt as if this feeling had awakened something else in him. Wasabi Man is now finally convinced that using the force release device in this battle is the right decision. Jack should not hold back. Jack was not at all frightened by the prospect of a battle with a third-tier thief. His blood hadn't boiled so much in a long time. They had 15 seconds to find out which one of them was stronger. The opponents clashed in a fierce fight, sparks flying from under their blades. Wasabi Man tried to deal as many blows as possible to his opponent, but the guy turned out to be very fast. Jack, in turn, also noted that the third-tier thief was a worthy opponent who was distinguished by his agility. Wasabi Man decided not to lose momentum and tried to strike another blow at his opponent. But the thief Jack's reaction really confused him. The guy seemed to have become even faster. The guy parried the attack and counterattacked Wasabi Man with a kick to the chest. A system notification announced that the man's attack had been interrupted. Wasabi Man flew back, but he was not about to lower his blade and back down from his intentions. He watched as Jack ran towards him, the boy giving him a good opportunity to strike. Wasabi Man was sure that at such a short distance the guy wouldn't be able to react quickly, so he activated the backstab. Meanwhile, the members of the party that Jack had gathered were discussing how they missed the times when he leveled up with them. Thanks to Jack, they were able to get a bunch of materials and sell them. Now you can enjoy all these goodies and increase your buffs. Anti-Mainstream asked Victor what he was looking at so intently all this time, throughout the entire conversation. The guy replied that he was watching the recordings he made during their travels. These were just a couple of instructions from Jack. Victor asked if his friends remembered how they defeated the clay dragon on insane difficulty, how Jack gave it his all then. He wasn't entirely sure then, but now he's compared all the information he found in his playing style and can say something with confidence. This microcontrol and the skills that Boss Jack was showing were definitely top-time conditions. Jane remarked that top time sounded like something with deep philosophical meaning, but Longface interrupted her. He had also heard gossip about top time, a state where the player completely merges with the character and can use incredibly fast micromechanics. It was first seen in old online games. It is a level that all masters strive for, a great rarity. Longface said it was just gossip. But if Jack was truly the man who had achieved the status of top time, then this strange thief was capable of truly impossible things. Jack, meanwhile, once again interrupted Wasabi Man's attack. The man didn't understand how this was possible, how Jack could react so quickly. He had also increased his characteristics. He couldn't believe that the force release device was nothing against this guy. Wasabi Man activated the skill Death Clone. Jack was once again able to interrupt the skill and counterattack with an accurate strike. His speed was very high. The guy dealt Wasabi Man a precise strike, and he said he wouldn't let him draw his blade because the guy was nothing without a weapon. Wasabi Man hoped that his calculations were correct and that the boy would finally pay for his arrogance. But Jack, without any problem, held back Wasabi Man's blade with his other hand without even blinking an eye. And if the third-tier thief didn't try to get away, the boy would hold his hand. He held it until the effect of Wasabi Man's item ended, and Jack took advantage of this to disarm his opponent. After such a turn of events in front of the shocked Tiana, Wasabi Man said that the guy had won. He was ready to surrender. He admitted that he had been wrong all along. Tiana was right about the guy. Jack passed the exam. The boy said that if the exam was over, he should leave them. Jack was going to return the day after tomorrow. Tiana reminded that in 2 days the monthly guild war praised Tiana for her good work, but the girl was lost in her thoughts, barely listening. Wasabi Man said that when they returned, they would need to discuss preparations for the monthly guild war. Tiana wondered if it was a malfunction of the measuring device, or if they had accepted a monster into their ranks. Jack's final score was 993. Jack had been on the level 7 map for several days, Endless Desert, and was currently surrounded by a pack of wolves. A few seconds passed and the first of them already rushed at the thief, followed by the others. The guy prepared for a fight. Jack cut down all the bravest ones while still in the air using the wind cutter technique. The smartest of the pack turned out to be the Red Wolf leader, and Jack turned to him and said that it was just the two of them left. The brief skirmish was interrupted by Jack's attack. Shadow Flash landed on the leader's head, depriving him of health points. And while the wolf was feeling weak, the boy added Rapid Stream to this combination, which added damage to the beast. The fight taking Jack. The monthly guild war was starting today. The guy should be there in a minute. Jack replied that he was just doing his job and didn't see the girl's message. The girl shouted for the boy to move faster. Everyone was waiting for him. Jack replied that he was already leaving. A minute later, as promised, the guy arrived at the location where the entire team of players was waiting for him. Samantha greeted him and said she was glad to see the guy in the ranks of the Misty Cliff, while Tiana noted that they had met before. The guy looked around the crowd for the elf he had helped return the staff to and asked if he still had the thing with him. The player answered in the affirmative. Tiana reported that Samantha and her subordinates are people she trusts. They will also accompany them during the war. There is a limit on the number of fighters for each guild, but they are free to form teams of any number of people. Samantha told Tiana not to worry. This time she wouldn't let anyone hurt her. The girl replied that in that case she was counting on an assistant. Jack noted that Tiana knew how to find a common language not only with men. The guy decided to ask if there were any things he should know ahead of time, since this was his first experience in such global battles. Tiana replied that the monthly guild war is a competition between guilds that takes place every month. A corresponding number of players from each guild participate, and points depend on the number of kills. The guild with the best score rises in the overall guild ranking. So the monthly war is a very important event where you can show your strength. Tiana noted that they could not change the situation, as the 5 great guilds had already shown their real power. However, there was one unspoken way of survival. Usually, other guilds would not voluntarily provoke the Magnificent Five. Instead, they target guilds that are equal to them or weaker in strength. This is how players maintain or increase their guild's rating. And the 5 great guilds are not so dishonest that they are ready to attack weaker opponents. Jack, after listening to the girl, said that this was not a way of survival, but the ordinary existence of the weak. Overall, the guy understood the whole picture. He told Tiana that he needed to tell her something, but it was preferable to do it alone. Samantha said she didn't understand this secrecy at all. Couldn't they just talk about everything calmly here? Jack said he wanted to create a squad with permanent teammates that would belong to Misty Ravine. but exist independently of the other echelons. Instead, he suggested that Tiana become responsible for this team. Jack said he would personally select candidates who would also pass the pre-admission test. Tiana was worried that he would only play the role of an intermediary. The girl reasoned that Jack wanted to create a powerful squad, and if she was responsible for this squad, new prospects would open up for her. Jack said that although there are many very talented players in this game, they can't just be allowed to join the team. Tiana promised again that she would do everything for Jack's comfort, so as the deputy captain of the third echelon, she would help him realize this idea. But the girl had her own conditions. The guy had to promise something, never to attack her. Jack laughed and told Tiana not to worry about it. He wasn't one of those people. The conversation of the friends was interrupted by a short man who shouted to be taken into the squad. He would not be a burden to the team. The boy with the shield on his back screamed and pleaded that he would give it his all, that he would tank like he had never tanked before, and that he would withstand any damage. The squad members begged the guy to leave. The other teams also refused him. Why did the guy join the monthly war? But the boy said that he worked hard to win the opportunity to participate in this war because he would lose his qualifications. Jack thought the guild was taking in children, but Tiana said it was just a little boy who dreamed of becoming a first-class tank warrior. They noticed the boy's stubborn nature, so they allowed him to join the guild to gain experience. I think his name is Nicholas. Jack turned to Tiana excitedly and asked her in a raised voice what the boy's name was. Tiana, frightened, replied that the boy's name was Nicholas, not understanding why this information excited the thief so much. Jack remembered this name. This guy was one of the 6 majestic shields in a past life, and his name was Nicholas of the Sacred Mountain. Could this little orc have been the same legendary Nicholas of the Holy Mountain? Meanwhile, the squad members were making excuses for not being able to take the boy in, as the war was about to start. They advised Nicholas to adequately assess his real strengths and not let them down. The players believed that it was not worth wasting time on the guy. Unexpectedly, Jack intervened in this conversation, noting that he still believes that hard work opens up many interesting opportunities. The squad members were unhappy that the new guy hadn't even had time to join the guild and was already poking his nose into other people's business. But Jack paid no attention to them at all. He extended his hand to Nicholas and asked if he wanted to join his squad. Maybe Jack didn't know it yet, but today's invitation marked the beginning of the game's first legendary team. Shadow, the horn sounded. This horn meant only one thing. The monthly guild war was beginning. All players were ready. The boundless ruins of the Saints is a vast battlefield for guild wars, literally permeated with the smell of blood, like a separate dimension. A place for guild battles that is not limited by rules. Kills have no effect on guild points, fame, or reputation. Rank is the only thing that matters. The monthly war began by opening all the doors through which the participants had to pass. After the portals opened, warriors from all guilds arrived through them, from the first to the last. All the warriors, having passed through the portal, were only waiting for the war to begin, which had already begun. With the gong striking again, all the squads ran in different directions to their pre-planned locations. Nicholas saw that the members of the outside guilds had already scattered across the map. This time it was a canyon. Samantha had ordered no one to get involved in the fights. While most of the participants followed the strategy of finding a safe place, Jack decided that they also needed to find a safe zone first. Tiana hoped she hadn't made a mistake by allowing Jack to become the leader of the group, even despite wanting him to protect her. The girl was very eager to see as many of this strange and mysterious thief's abilities as possible, heard here and there. Justin's squad also fought. Its members were satisfied. They defeated the enemies very easily. Wasabi Man watched his friend. It seemed that he hadn't left yet. If Justin worried about his defeat, his skills would stop growing. But Wasabi Man himself was looking forward to the next fight with Jack, so he could become even stronger. One of the squad members asked why Justin insisted on returning here. Other groups should gather here. Wasabi Man agreed with this opinion. The third-tier thief had no idea that Justin had a plan, so why did he insist on this particular spot? That was definitely not the case. As soon as Wasabi Man thought about it, the entire squad froze. It was an ambush. They were being influenced by magic. On the cliff above them, the members of the White Jade shouted that Justin's squad had been trapped by the binding skill. The leader of the White Jade squad praised Justin for his good work, saying that he passed the exam through the sacrifice of 3 comrades. Wasabi Man asked Justin what it all meant, demanding answers, but White Jade had already decided to attack. The commander of the White Jade squad said that all the boy had to do was provide Tiana's coordinates, and then Justin would officially join the Wolf Fang. Wasabi Man could have believed, wouldn't it be good to join the Wolf Fang and become stronger? All conversations were interrupted by a voice call. The squad commander asked if they had been able to find the target, to which he received an affirmative answer. The deputy commander was very happy about this news. She shouted for the players to hurry up and deal with them. The commander put his hand on Justin's shoulder and told him not to worry. 5 thieves would definitely be enough to finish her off, and it was all thanks to him. But the squad captain's bragging speech was interrupted by a voice from the panel, announcing that everything was not going according to plan. The player's voice reported that they were not warned about Tiana's bodyguard. Everything was bad. The guy said he was hiding in a safe place, but the commander didn't want to speak more quietly, despite the danger to his man. In just 3 minutes, this guard killed 4 people from their squad, leaving only the one who called. Wasabi Man realized that this person was Jack. The deputy commander could not believe this information. That player must have been joking. Now the man could calm down and leave Tiana's protection to his recent opponent. Meanwhile, the last survivor said that none of their people had respawned yet and asked if he could temporarily retreat. But the guy got too carried away with the negotiations and forgot about safety. Jack appeared behind him and asked to hand him the phone. 10 minutes earlier, Samantha had asked why they were running so far, as the group members thought it looked like cowardice. But Nicholas replied that it was okay. If someone attacked from the front, he was willing to take all the damage on himself and let the others attack. The squad members did not appreciate the kid's gesture. They believed that with equipment like his, Nicholas would hide behind them, not the other way around. Tiana, who was running a little behind Jack, asked if he really had a plan, because no one but the boy felt confident. The guy looked around for a moment and replied that he didn't have any plans, he just wanted to crush a couple of bugs. Tiana looked at the guy in shock. She didn't even suspect that they were being followed. Suddenly, the boy stopped running and the entire group came to a sudden halt. No one understood the reason. When asked by the team, the boy replied that the spies stuck to them like chewing gum, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't get them off. Tiana immediately ordered everyone to prepare for battle. Nicholas was more ready than ever. He wanted to see the enemies. Meanwhile, the spies moving along the river realized that they had been noticed. Someone from this detachment was very perceptive. They were underwater in stealth equipment. No one could know their exact location, so the spies were safe for now. Jack's squad tried to figure out the location of the spies, but it was all in vain. The players realized that the concealment skill was involved. Jack decided to use his keen eyesight to find all hidden objects and enemies within a certain radius. A few seconds later, the boy found his target in the driver next to them. The spies understood this. The thief had a skill that exposed them. The squad leader assumed that the overall strength of Jack's squad was low. They could finish off the weakest ones first. The spies decided to act preemptively and jumped out of the water, attacking their opponents. Jack ran towards them, ordering everyone else to stay put because someone might attack from behind. The head of the spy squad, each preparing his blows. The overconfident spies could only count on hitting the clones instead of the real Jack. They wanted to find the true purpose, but suddenly, they were possessed by a curse that deprived them of willpower. The rest of the spy squad did not understand what was happening to their boss, and panic began to rise among the enemies. Suddenly, Jack appeared behind one of them, advising the boy to take better care of himself. A second later, the boy slashed the spy and kicked the other 2 away. After Jack dealt with the first one, he moved on to the other 2, methodically reducing their health points. He informed his team that all the spies had only a third of their health left, and the players could do whatever they wanted with them. Jack's team didn't need to be persuaded. They happily did their job. The effect of the curse on the squad commander and his subordinate had already worn off, and he ordered to get rid of the enemy as soon as possible. But they could do nothing. Jack was flying at them, the speed of his attack leaving no chance for a reaction on their part. Jack pulled the same trick on these 2 as he had on their predecessors. The spies no longer considered the boy human. Jack wasn't going to stop this time. He was coming up with new combinations of blows. For the opponents, this was completely unbelievable. They were far from the same level as the thief. The last survivor looked at Jack in horror and realized that his only option was to flee. But no matter what, Jack was able to find him again. He wanted to talk to the captain. The guy couldn't deny anything. He turned to the vice captain. It was the same scumbag. And the delight at this news was inherent in him. The man understood that they would definitely meet again. Had the nebula really taken him to the guild? Justin replied that it was all Tiana's idea, and he had nothing to do with it. The guy was worried about his membership in the Wolf Fang. The squad captain was unstoppable. He boldly said that this boy must be tired of life because he was threatening him. Wasabi Man drew attention to himself, and the squad captain said that it seemed that Justin's friend had a different opinion on the matter. Wasabi Man, rejecting the patroness's dagger, replied that they didn't need to worry about him at all. Suddenly, with his other hand, he grabbed Justin by the breasts saying that he was incredibly ashamed that they had been partners. The man angrily continued that the members of his new guild would happily tell about Justin's betrayal when they were resurrected. As for him, this month he was going to leave the guild war and their problems would no longer concern him. Finally, he added that the next time they met, they would be enemies and left the monthly guild war. Dissipating into space, Wasabi Man said that Justin was now on his own. The squad commander said that this weirdo himself doesn't know what's best for him. He missed the gift of a chance to join the Wolf Fang. Justin saw a system notification that Tiana had removed him from his friends list, probably because that part of the squad had already discovered his betrayal. From that moment on, Justin became an enemy of the Mists, and the betrayal of the guild would lead to revenge against the boy. He said the guy was very lucky to join their squad, but Justin only thought about revenge. They decided to just wait until Tiana found them herself. There was no point in moving anywhere. Jack demanded that the spy give out the coordinates of his captain, but he did not want to do this and betray his squad. Jack noted that the spy was quite loyal, but because he had a red nickname, he killed at least 2 people on the way here. If Jack killed him now, the guy would probably drop a few things. Jack smiled in the spy's face and said he'd like to let him go. The spy, nevertheless, decided to confess. He gave the coordinates of his vice captain and reported that he was going to the east. This was accurate information. Jack thanked the spy and said that now he would remove him from the war in a softer way. The guy thought that after receiving the information, Jack would let him go, but he replied that lying was normal in war. Tiana stood on the edge of a cliff. She couldn't believe that Justin could betray them, especially for such a stupid reason. She wondered how Wasabi Man was doing. Because of Justin's betrayal, some hierarchy would have to be changed. She decided that she simply had to take advantage of this situation for her own success. The girl's thoughts were interrupted by Samantha, who asked if the girl had seen the guild's message. Tiana replied that she had already received a message about Justin's betrayal. Samantha said that she had not thought at all about the knife in the back from this freak. Tiana interrupted the idle chatter. She asked where Jack was now. Nicholas pointed in the direction. They had to go to him. When the squad returned to Jack, he reported that they were on time. He had found out the coordinates of the enemies. Tiana decided to cast a spell and found out that if you believe these coordinates, the squad is indeed heading east. This means that they will soon meet other Wolffang groups, which will help them attack from all sides and score a lot of points. Nicholas was amazed by Tiana's insight. This girl knew everything about the plans of other guilds. Samantha stopped the guy. It wasn't a secret at all during the guild war. He would be able to guess it if he started thinking with his head. The only thing that mattered during guild wars was killing. They earned guilds points, which increased their score. The Wolffang strategy is to increase points at the last moment when no one expects it. Nicholas, scratching the back of his head, replied that, of course, he knew that. He just wanted to boost the team's morale. Tiana approached Jack, and the guy asked if the girl had a plan for this. She replied that their squad could fight their way through the slaughterhouse to the center and intercept them halfway. The central area is the area that is connected to all 4 teleports. Due to the chaos of the guilds, there were many fights, which made it very difficult for the participants to pass. Even if reinforcements arrive, they still won't receive immediate help. The boy pondered Tiana's idea, feeling a little uneasy about the chaotic battles. Jack asked if they could hide information about the guilds here. Tiana replied that they could, but usually no one does that because that's not how they count murders. But Jack assured her that everything would be fine. Jack had an interesting idea about this. He used a mask of secrecy. It hid information about the user. Under the surprised gazes of his team, the boy put on a clown mask and ordered them to head to the central area. Meanwhile, in the central area of the guild war, there were a lot of people. People were constantly on the move. This is the central area of the battlefield, where dust billows across the entire plain due to endless guild battles. The battles here were very tense, like the seething reality that symbolized them. Each of the participating guilds had its enemies, with whom it wanted to get even in this particular place. Some participants wanted to take revenge on the opponents who defeated them last time. Suddenly, members of one of the squads noticed someone behind them, wondering if the enemies were preparing a hidden attack from the rear. But this player didn't look like any of the people because he was wearing a mask. On the edge of the canyon stood Jack, holding a dagger in his hands, his face hidden behind a clown mask, and his hair sticking out in different directions. A second later, Jack launched an attack that was so unexpected that his opponent didn't have enough time to prepare. Falling to the ground, the player called out to his captain, who instantly appeared before Jack, asking what was happening. The guy did not respond verbally. His response was to kick the enemy's body. The members of the other squads did not understand what kind of guild had intervened in their fight, but they were concerned that the captain was on the ground. Jack looked at each of the enemy squad and determined that he was a member of the Wolffang, and they were a bunch of freaks. Other participants began to be indignant at why Wolffang was interfering in the battles of other guilds. Did they really think that the guild war was their home? Some participants also demanded that Jack remove his hiding mask and reveal his identity, but he replied that he would not do so. He announced that Wolffang was giving them 30 seconds to escape because a squad would come here and destroy everyone. If they don't agree, then let them not blame him later for not warning them. This greatly angered the members of other guilds. They believed that the guy was going too far. The reputation of Wolffang had always been bad. Soon the entire canyon was talking about putting Wolffang in its place and making them pay for what they had done. The other members of Jack's squad watched the boy's actions. He was unbeatable, having fooled so many people in such a short time. Tiana couldn't have thought that Jack would use such tricks, but did he have a technique for escaping safely after what he had done? Jack could see that the center area was filled with players, and if everyone was here, he would put on a real show for them. When the Wolffang people arrive at the venue, they will have a huge surprise for them. They just need to relax and enjoy the show. Tiana seriously began to worry about Jack's fate. He was, after all, her protector. Soon, the real members of Wolffang arrived in the central area, and all the rival guilds focused on them. The squad leader didn't understand why so many people were welcoming their arrival. Something about it was wrong. The first player started shouting and threatening them. The squad captain started calling out his guild, but the opponents already knew it and considered it dog shit. The conversation was short-lived. The first brave men attacked the Wolffang squad, whose members still couldn't understand why everyone was so against them. Jack, hiding among the crowd in a mask, understood that something serious was approaching. The commander of the Wolffang detachment tried to understand what had happened. He had a very bad feeling. It was like fear, becoming a target for the unknown in the dark. Jack decided not to waste any time and, running up from behind, delivered a critical blow to the back of one of the members of the Wolffang squad. So the guy eliminated the first one. The squad commander ordered all members to be on guard. No one even noticed how it happened. The deputy commander suspected that it was Jack's doing, but the captain replied that he had not seen his face, only a clown mask. The man ordered no one in the squad to panic and activated gravitational pressure, which slowed down the speed of movement within the radius of action. After the dome was formed, the squad captain ordered the members to go inside as quickly as possible. He believed that now, this thief would not be able to do anything while they were in the circle. The deputy believed that he simply wouldn't dare go inside, that this bastard should be made to pay for the consequences of their confrontation. The captain started to agree with the girl, but stopped mid-sentence. She didn't understand what had happened. Behind the assistant stood Jack. Despite the girl's screams, she became the second. The squad captain still couldn't see the attacker. His speed was still extraordinary. The defender had no chance. Jack's squad was rushing to help their leader. The coordinates for the meeting were already somewhere nearby. Samantha claimed that Jack wanted to give Tiana a gift, and the location was somewhere here. Nicholas was also looking forward to it. But there was no one here, not even Jack. Maybe they came to the wrong place. Judging by the coordinates, everything seemed to be correct. Tiana saw that ahead, a sandstorm was rushing towards them and someone was walking inside it. She ordered everyone to prepare for battle. But within seconds, everyone was staring in amazement at Jack, who was holding the deputy commander of the Wolffang squad on his shoulder. It turns out that this scoundrel was the gift Jack was talking about. The guy opened the girl's mouth. Immediately, the girl's mouth began to curse. She demanded to be released. This annoyed the team so much that they considered taping her mouth shut again. Tiana, on the other hand, ordered Jack to untie the deputy commander of the Wolffang, despite Samantha's objections. The deputy thought that Tiana was afraid of her and began to guarantee that her squad would not touch them, like last time. But the assistant's surprise knew no bounds when Tiana replied that she was not afraid. She was just thinking. She wondered what skill she should use against such a treacherous woman as the deputy commander of the Wolffang squad. The girl also did not sit idly by, but grabbed her dagger, rushing into the attack to force Tiana to shut her mouth. But all the efforts of the protector were in vain. The path of Tiana's vine blocked her movements. If the deputy still wanted to fight so badly, Tiana wasn't even going to show her any mercy. As the vine dragged the girl underground, she screamed that she would remember this, and later, she begged to stop. Even when her hand disappeared into the ground, Tiana thanked Jack for such a gift and said that she was in his debt. Jack said that before returning to the central area, he needed to take someone with him. Tiana asked who exactly because it was very dangerous there, but the boy replied that he was safe as long as this person was helping him. Each member of the squad thought the captain was talking about him, except for Nicholas, who asked who exactly Jack was referring to. Jack looked at Nicholas and said that he needed his help. Everyone turned to the boy in shock. Nicholas himself was indescribably shocked and even began to stammer from excitement, wondering if anyone had really noticed and appreciated him. The boy even had tears in his eyes. He happily punched Jack in the face and said that he could rely on him. The battle was still going on in the central area. The captain was looking for the thief, and one of the team members reported that the deputy's information indicated death. The captain ordered all groups to gather immediately. They must not give this thief a single chance. When asked that they would become a laughingstock, the captain replied that he didn't care. He wanted to punish the thief for his wife. The men of the detachment were low on health and wanted to retreat to regroup, but the captain was adamant. Justin, who had been eavesdropping on this conversation, was already looking forward to the captain being killed, thus saving him from many troubles. The boys' thoughts were interrupted by a flying shield heading towards them. The captain was unpleasantly surprised. Once again, these annoying pests were interfering with their existence. Nicholas, who had already picked up his shield, asked if the shrimp warrior wanted to be killed. Jack emerged as if from under the ground on the other side of the captain, who called such an appearance too naive. The man was confident in his strength. The captain shouted that he would really burn Jack, that he would experience the strongest fiery spell on himself. Now he would not be able to escape. It was revenge for the woman, the captain tried to say, but Jack began to sneer, saying that this was probably what a man in a relationship looked like. He added that he would never have thought of such stupidity from his opponent, who used a long spell against the fast thief. A moment later, finding himself next to the captain's face, Jack said with a smile that he should therefore follow his wife. A second later, Jack stripped the captain of a large number of health points, calling the man a damn dog. Nicholas, happy with the sight he saw, congratulated Jack on their victory. But Jack replied that this was still not the case. Wolf Fang would definitely send a large group to chase him. He called out to Nicholas to come with him urgently, saying he wanted to check something. Justin said they couldn't lose this war. He had a lot of experience, and all that needed to be done was to let him lead temporarily. The captain agreed. He told Justin to show what he was capable of and contact other groups. The guy agreed without hesitation. There was one more White Jade unit left, the Flying Shield, and Jack and Nicholas took on its members. Nicholas was delighted. Their teamwork was impeccable. He liked how low health opponents were killed without giving them a chance to react. Jack was annoyed by his assistant's talkativeness, but said that his technique was called Rapid Flow. The guy said that it looked cool. Nicholas asked if Jack could teach him his technique. It would be good to use a shield in this technique, pushing people into dust. Nicholas also asked Jack about the mask, and he noticed that the guy was very talkative. It seemed like he would never be bored. But this time, he brought Nicholas here precisely to make sure his choice was correct. He remembered how the boy was happy to hear that he could join her group. Nicholas was ready to do anything to fit into his team. All the squads the boy had joined before were bad, like they couldn't keep up with his pace, but Jack told the boy to relax. Jack heard that Nicholas wanted to be the strongest shield warrior and asked him about it. The guy replied that he stands in front of his teammates with his head held high, attacks first and takes all the damage, is not afraid of anything. He wanted to become just like the #1 shield in the celestial country. This player was unbeatable. Realizing that the boy was very distracted, Jack reminded him of his questions and asked him to name his special qualities or skills. Nicholas thought for a moment. This boy bore the same name as a god who was revered as one of the 6 shields of the celestial country. If this is really Sacred Mountain Zong, then it must have special qualities, or maybe Jack came too early. Maybe Nicholas hasn't developed them yet. The boy, meanwhile, was pondering what could be considered special qualities. He was unsure that what he was thinking about made sense. Jack was very interested in what exactly it was about, whether the guy really had some kind of skill, but he replied that it was blessing. Nicholas said that his special quality was a blessing called courage. Jack froze, wondering if the legend he had heard in a past life had turned out to be true. Paradise Valley contained an infinite number of unknown special skills, equipment, and additional attributes. Any player can receive a mysterious reward by going on a quest. If the blessing that little Nicholas speaks of was indeed one of these rewards, then this guy could really be the sacred mountain of Zong that everyone prayed to in their past lives. Nicholas encountered a strange quest on the 3rd level. After completing it, he received an item called Courage. But he doesn't know how to use it. Jack asked if there was anything else with this thing. Maybe some description of this blessing. The guy said he would check now. Suddenly, Nicholas shouted that a large number of people were approaching them ahead, and Jack turned in that direction. These were the same scum that Jack needed. They had found their prey, which the captain had pointed out to them before his death. Jack immediately remembered all the trouble they had caused him. He didn't think he would meet this trio right here. Nicholas, who was standing next to Jack, seemed to pick up on his mood. The little boy really didn't like this situation. To top it all off, the boy heard a very familiar voice from the recent past. It was Justin himself, sarcastically saying that they had finally met again and asking if Jack remembered him. Above his head shone the new rank of temporary deputy captain of the 3rd Detachment of the White Jade. The boy said that he promised revenge. Nicholas, who had already prepared his shield, asked Jack what they were going to do because there were too many opponents. Jack replied to Nicholas to calm down and asked if the guy wanted to become even cooler. He answered in the affirmative. But he was also afraid. Jack ordered the boy to cool down. He was preparing in advance for a fierce battle with these people. He wanted to see Nicholas use his blessing in this fight. If everything worked out, it would be worth it, even if they died. Tiana contacted the guys and reported that they were already rushing to help, while members of other clans were retreating from the site in fear. A few seconds later, the girl, along with the rest of the squad, ran up to Jack and Nicholas. They made it just in time. The guy looked around and asked why they had come. Tiana replied that she had received a notification about the White Jade group and thought they had already been killed. Jack replied that he ordered them to stay safe. But Tiana said that he was their captain in this guild battle. Did the guy really want them to ignore the lives of their teammates? It didn't fit the girl's philosophy. Jack was surprised by this answer. In his past life, he always raised his level independently. He didn't have a team. He had already forgotten the warm feelings that these words had given rise to. Jack said that the group needed to prepare. It would be a tough battle. Suddenly, their conversation was interrupted by Justin's voice, who shouted that the girl was still protecting the thief. To Tiana's great surprise, he added that they had no choice but to become enemies. Samantha reacted not so restrainedly. She shouted that Justin was a scumbag and had really become a White Jade mongrel. After giving the order to attack, the boy shouted for them to say whatever they wanted. He was only concerned with revenge. Jack realized that the time for small talk was over. It was time to prepare for battle. Everyone had to group up. Thus began a bloody battle between the White Jade and Misty Abyss clans, with Samantha covering Tiana's back. At one point, the girl asked Tiana to cover her back to hold back those in front, and she replied that she would create a flower magic shield. The members of the White Jade taunted the girls and told them to simply surrender or join them. But Samantha interrupted this stream of male chatter and counterattacked the attackers, who realized that they couldn't waste a single second. As they struck, the girl said with a smile that they were stupid for wanting to kill her. Whoever these attackers thought they were, Samantha used Sword of the Great Punishment against them. After such a massacre, the members of the White Jade realized that Samantha was the attacking warrior. Tiana praised her partner for her work and said that she would take on the other side. Magical attacks would not reach them. But Tiana was interrupted by members of the White Jade, who decided to attack her with a joint backstab. With a striking leap of defense, Nicholas defended the girl. He shouted that no one dared to lay a finger on their team. This only angered the opponents even more. But Jack joined this sector of the battle because it was rude to insult the ladies and children. A second later, the boy inflicted heavy damage on all 3 cunning attackers, who were unable to counter him. Samantha was very happy about this reinforcement. She said that there were too many enemies here and it was impossible for her to contain them alone. The other members of the squad asked anxiously if they were okay, to which the girls replied that, of course, they were still holding on. There were too many opponents and they were all too strong. The members of Jack's squad used up all their recovery potions. Tiana realized that the team needed protection and created a medium-rank magic shield. Nicholas was delighted. Samantha noted that Tiana also possesses high-ranking destructive spells, but cannot use them in this situation. Thanks to the shield, the players were finally able to catch their breath, but if the enemies come, they will need to come up with an escape plan. But, unexpectedly, Tiana's mid-rank magic shield was pierced by Justin's arrow. Fortunately, the arrow did not hit the girl, but it did hit one of the team members. The elf who had lost his staff in the dungeon was now losing consciousness. He needed to be healed immediately. Justin was unhappy with this shot. He was counting on another, but one of his henchmen praised him. Jack's arch-enemy, the captain, could not even imagine that the combined attack would be so strong. Justin replied that he was very familiar with this magical defense Tiana was using. For normal spellcasters, it would take much longer. Justin wanted Jack and Tiana dead. No one was to be left alive. The squad focused on the approaching enemies while the healers healed. The magic shield was destroyed. The defenders' abilities were still in rollback. The attackers sought to take advantage of this favorable moment for themselves. Jack turned to Nicholas. He said that the guy had to protect others, and he needed to deal with killing some people. Nicholas objected, saying there were too many enemies, but Jack said if he wanted to become the strongest defender, he needed to be brave. The guy must help his comrades and finally show them his courage. With these words, Jack left his friends. Samantha and Tiana were shocked by Jack's action. Did he really leave their protection to little Nicholas? The thief was joking, even in danger. Nicholas stared at his hands as if spellbound. A coward like him, who only cries when scared, must show everyone his courage. The enemies used a rain of arrows and other spells, and the boy continued to dig within himself, trying to find courage. The friends had already begun to fight the enemies, trying to repel their furious onslaught. They shouted to Nicholas to hide behind them. He replayed Jack's words in his head. The boy understood that even if he was scared, he didn't want to. His friends were waiting for his help and were simply begging for it. But the boy, covering himself with a shield, was still lost in his thoughts. Suddenly, Nicholas found how to activate his power. He was fearless and steadfast. Like a mountain cutting through the clouds, courage was revealed. The attackers changed their targets, deciding to ignore the other members of the Misty Abyss and aim for the giant monster that appeared out of nowhere. Even Jack looked back. He had expected this. He had to lead Nikki into a dead end to awaken the blessing. The jackpot had been hit. Kid Nicholas is indeed one of the sacred shields of the 6 Heavenly Valley. He is the sacred mountain Zong. Justin couldn't believe his eyes. What the hell was that giant thing coming from? Was it really a player? Was it really one of the members of the Misty Cliff? The captain of the White Jade began to question Justin about this. Justin replied that even if asked, he wouldn't know the answer. The guy had never seen such a participant in Misty Cliff. Along with his enemies, Nicholas's brothers could not believe what they saw. Could it really be the same baby? Baby Nicholas, now a giant, used the destruction field against his enemies who fled in fear in different directions. But the attackers were not as agile and fast as the boy's attack. Nicholas's skill deprived them of health points. This zone, into which the members of the White Jade fell, slowed them down, and the enemy squad's attack was repelled. The attackers thought about retreating, but Justin had a different opinion. Everyone was scared just because this player was bigger than the others. The captain ordered everyone to continue attacking because, most likely, this was an enemy player with unusual abilities. Justin was sure that no matter what size the enemy was, he would still die here and now. White Jade launched a new wave of attacks. The members of Jack's squad had almost no strength to resist. The only hope for salvation was Nicholas. Suddenly, the giant Nicholas raised one of his hands up, releasing electrical discharges into the sky that flew in all directions. The brothers' fighting spirit immediately increased. It turns out the guy used a strengthening buff. The team's magical defense instantly increased by 50%, along with physical defense. Nicholas, using incredible force, tore out a huge chunk of rock and lifted it onto his shoulder. The guy activated the meteor grenade skill and threw a rock in the direction of the enemy clan. The confused enemies froze in surprise. It was a mistake. They should have run away, but the rock had already landed, scattering the players in different directions. The captain of the White Jade shouted that we must obey the order and attack, not stand idly by. Justin didn't understand what kind of nonsense he was talking about. This man had ruined all his plans. Why use a long-range attack? But Justin's surprise was short-lived. He didn't even have time to feel anything, and Jack had already thrust his dagger into his chest. One of Justin's henchmen shouted at him to regroup, but when the boy didn't respond, he turned back to him. If he had done it a second earlier, he could have avoided Jack's attack, but the player was too slow. Finally, Jack told Justin to take care of himself. He hoped these 3 bastards would have a good time together in hell. The captain didn't understand why the White Jade squad hadn't been reorganized yet and started a roll call, wondering if they were all dead because they weren't responding. Jack, who unexpectedly found himself next to the captain of the enemy squad, replied that he was absolutely right. All his henchmen were dead. The captain muttered through his teeth that the boy must be wishing for death if he tried to attack from the front. The villain from White Jade managed to turn around sharply and attack the thief Jack with a powerful attack. The captain smiled condescendingly and shouted to the stupid thief to go to hell, but Jack asked if he still didn't recognize him. The next moment, Jack took off his mask, and he immediately remembered everything. The ability that Jack had taken from that book was called Evil Spirit Concealment. Finally, Jack said that today, right now, the captain would fully enjoy the horror of this ability. A few minutes later, Tiana called Jack, asking where he was. The guy replied that he would join them. They needed to retreat. Jack reasoned that by protecting baby Nicholas, they had managed to evade the enemy's attack. Tiana had enough time to cast and release the sky spikes, which helped the team retreat to a safe zone. The battle in the central part of the battlefield and that mysterious giant creature became the most discussed topics after the guild battle ended. Although Misty Abyss was still in 5th place in the rankings, their team took 1st place because they scored the most points. After the war ended and the announcement of the first awakened, the members of Jack's squad gathered to celebrate their small victory. Samantha downed her mug in one go, and Tiana, worried about her, advised her to slow down because the game had a system to combat drunkenness. The elf, who had already been patched up, laughed at Nicholas, saying that he shouldn't drink anymore because he was a child. Tiana interrupted the chatter, thanking everyone for participating in the monthly war. If it weren't for each and every one of them, they wouldn't have won, especially Nicholas. The boy shyly began to say that there was nothing special about it, so no thanks were needed. But Samantha told him not to be shy, because without protection they wouldn't be able to escape to safety. His transformation is something incredible. Nicholas, finally exhausted, said that he should have done something. He was just begging his friends to stop. Samantha said they should also thank Tiana. She was irreplaceable, constantly protecting them and activating that powerful spell at the end. Samantha provocatively approached Tiana almost face to face, and she, without a shadow of shyness, replied that she was simply doing what was necessary. Everyone, except for Nicholas, whose eyes were closed, citing the fact that he was small, looked at this picture with their mouths open. And yet, the one who tried the hardest was Jack. Samantha admitted that this guy was really cool. She said that the thief was simply too strong and knew what he was doing, even in such a difficult situation. And that moment at the end, when he destroyed his opponents after the elf was shot, the boy thought that Jack was avenging him. Diana, listening to the chatter of her friends, reflected on the fact that Jack was indeed a very mysterious person. She didn't know if he was aware of Nicholas's strength, but he definitely had a plan. Thanks to him, this inconspicuous group took a leading position in the battle. This strange thief completely exceeded her expectations. With his abilities, could she raise the bar of her determination even higher? The girls' thoughts were interrupted by Nicholas, who asked if Jack would join them. He needed to share something with him. Tiana replied that the guy wouldn't come. Jack said he had something to take care of and left right after the battle. Nicholas was sure it was because of the first player to change specialization, or the first awakened one that everyone received a notification about. Tiana wasn't sure about it herself, but this announcement had become a fairly popular topic of conversation in Paradise Valley. But she also couldn't say what was really the reason Jack wasn't with them today. Meanwhile, Jack was washing his hands in the waters of a stream that was near one of his recent fights. Behind the boy, a mountain of severed bodies of the monsters of this location could be seen. The thief had done a very good job this time too. But Jack was still very unhappy with the results, which is why he punched the water and cursed. He was very upset with Darkscar. The first awakened one was too fast. He didn't think he would reach level 15 so quickly. This guy was sure he deserved the title of the best player in Paradise Valley. But Jack thought he was just playing dumb all the time. Jack abruptly stood up and picked up his weapon, which was sticking out of the ground next to him. He couldn't just sit idly by. His level shouldn't be too low because the pros from his past life have probably already started leveling up. In this world, levels and abilities decided everything. For this, he needed to assemble the strongest team. Now he only had Nicholas. Jack reassured himself. He shouldn't rush because of the awakened one. Now he needs to train Nicholas, level him up, and look for others. The area he was in is very difficult to access. Are there really those who have come to such a remote place as he? The guy decided that he urgently needed to test his guesses in practice and began to move deeper into the forest. Carefully following the wakened man's footsteps, he praised himself for being attentive enough. Otherwise, he would have definitely lost this person. Watching the dark charm from afar, he thought that the person seemed to have a high level. Judging from the traces, there was only one player here. The place he was making his way through was undoubtedly rural, and he could have forgotten, having woken up here, whether he was really fulfilling some special mission. After passing through the cave where the footprints led, the boy saw a man coming out of another exit, and the man was indeed alone. There was a box next to the stranger. Now it was clear why this guy had come to such a place. He needed it. Jack knew he had to leave. He was so curious that he followed this guy. He shouldn't bother him. The guy looked at the player information above his head. It was Darkscar, the best player in Paradise Valley. It was strange that he was here. In Jack's past life, he could only dream of meeting an untouched awakened one. But here he was sure that he would not lose to anyone. He wondered what the difference would be between them if he fought with all his might, should he ask Darkscar for a duel. Thinking, Jack didn't notice how he lost his aim, but he was only distracted for a couple of seconds. The awakened one was nowhere to be found. A moment later, a voice sounded next to him. Darkscar asked why the boy was spying on him from the cave. He also asked if the thief was seeking murder, if he was really going to challenge him. Jack replied that he said his name, that he was a 7th level thief, but Scar replied that he didn't need to be named. He didn't care. There are too many people coming here every day, making such a fuss trying to challenge him. If Jack is one of them, he can forget about it. The guy didn't know how to respond to this tirade because that was exactly what he had intended. His opponent's reaction was already clear to him. Dark Scar rose to his feet and said that if everything was clear, the boy should leave. A box was waiting for the awakened one, and he advised the guy to level up or something like that. Realizing that the chance, after all, could not be lost, Jack shouted to Scar in the back that he wanted to challenge him. He knew that there were 8 levels separating them, but he hoped that his opponent would not underestimate him. The boy asked for a duel. Dark Scar assessed the prospect of a duel and, after several minutes of silence, agreed. He scratched the back of his head again and said wearily that he agreed, just this once. Despite the difference in levels with the combo overlay technique that Jack used against the Mud Dragon, he has a chance of winning. Jack understood that he would have to use his abilities. Scar was a warrior, so it was worth being wary of his battle cry. The fight began, and the boy decided to first study his opponent's attacks using his unique skills. It was necessary somehow to find the weak spot of the Dark Scar, who did not even move despite Jack's rapid movements. The agile thief moved without stopping, his trajectory forming circles around his opponent. He accelerated, and when he reached maximum speed, he jumped towards Dark Scar, preparing to attack. Activating backstab, Jack found himself behind Scar, already bringing his blade over him. The boy thought he had caught him, but within a second his mind changed. Dark Scar instantly turned around and grabbed Jack by the throat. He sealed the boy's attack and interrupted the skill, knocking Jack to the ground. The damage was critical. Jack lay on the grass, spitting blood from his mouth. The boy's health was almost at 0. Dark Scar said that the thief had a good technique. He was probably in top time mode, but Jack was still weak. Among his opponents were people much stronger than Jack, but it was all just a waste of time. Jack had nothing to say to the awakened one. He couldn't believe his loss. This had never happened before in his life. Dark Scar complained that he couldn't get away from other players' challenges. He probably needed to be more secretive. The awakened one saw that the boy was no longer able to attack. He said that the winner had been determined and asked to leave him alone. Jack could only be angry with himself. His opponent was incredibly strong. But also, remembering the words of the awakened one, he hated both the feeling of hopelessness and the look down on him, so his anger awakened the desire to attack. Dark Scar, who had already managed to move a sufficient distance away from the boy, looked around in surprise. Jack was all radiating golden fire. He was filled with hatred. It was definitely not the end. He was still alive, and therefore could fight on. The boy again pulled out his blade, from which lightning was shooting in all directions. A second later, he was already flying at the enemy, turning into a continuous fiery beam of energy. But this attack was a failure. Scar grabbed him by the breasts and asked if the boy really had such an ability. When the pause lengthened, Scar laughed. It was all because the boy was a candidate, still not awakened. Jack, shocked, didn't even resist. He tried to understand if Scar meant the Certificate of Mastery. Jack asked if Scar knew about the Certificate of Mastery. Had he also been assigned such a task? The boy remembered that it was the only mission. Dark Scar was interested in this remark. It turns out that the guy has a Certificate of Mastery, and it seems there was more than one of them. But, putting his hand on Jack's shoulder, Dark Scar said that he was still a candidate, and he should find out all this on his own. Finally, he mentioned Jack's name and added that he would definitely remember it. The guy tried to start a conversation about the fight, but Dark Scar replied that it was useless. The boy had no chance of winning. But the awakened one promised that if Jack ever had enough strength, they would meet again. He truly hoped that he was worth the wait. Dark Scar said goodbye without turning around and disappeared. The boy realized that he was making him wait for a new meeting. But Jack was sure that they would meet next time, and that time he would definitely win. The first awakened, Dark Scar, was, as expected, a very strong opponent. But Jack, in this life, was much more confident than this weirdo. He promised that he would select the best player in Paradise Valley for that title. After returning to reality, Jack developed a plan, even in a public shower, in front of others who were very squinting in his direction. Jack had to clearly work out a plan for leveling up and recruiting a team. Right now, that was the priority. He wasn't paying attention to anyone else. In the last game, he started clearing dungeons with Nicholas. He needs time to learn something. And this something is a Certificate of Mastery. Dark Scar proved that the Certificate of Mastery, after all, has some secrets. Pouring a huge mountain of rice into a bowl, the boy decided to find out how his grandfather cried the most about it. He didn't have that much money. There was no point wasting a single minute. It was necessary to speed up your leveling. It was time to start the game. The guy conceived the implementation of the plan of full equipment of a deity. The game download process began. A moment later, Jack found himself in the main city of Casfa, in the central square near the fountain. Not even a second had passed since little Nicholas called him, and Jack looked around a little displeased. He said that he met a team that turned him down. Apparently, they didn't know how many points they had earned in the monthly war and didn't believe him. Also, these people didn't know who Jack was. He argued with them for a long time, but they still didn't believe him. The guy just wouldn't shut up. Nicholas asked where they were going. If they were going to level up, if they were going to learn something new. Jack replied that they were waiting for one person. Nicholas asked if this person was Tiana. If the three of them raised the levels, the team would be invincible. But Jack said it wasn't her. Jack, of course, was going to maintain his partnership with Tiana for now. Finally, the right person came. She said that she had reported Jack's absence due to important circumstances. Tiana wanted to thank the guy for this monthly guild battle. She was still filled with joy. The guy replied that no thanks were needed. He had found a partner and got what he wanted. There was an unresolved issue regarding the guild. Tiana was scared. Was the guy really going to leave them? Of course, they had agreed on a temporary entry and easy conditions. But the guy said that it was the opposite. He needed the guild's resources, so he wouldn't leave it for now. He had his own plans. Tiana took a breath. The results of this monthly war would definitely interest people with higher levels, but she would arrange everything. After waiting a little, the girl asked what exactly the thief Jack's plans were. Jack asked if Tiana had the contacts of that red-skinned thief. He needed them. It was about Wasabi Man. The guy got what he wanted, and after a while, they met. Seeing Nicholas next to Jack, the thief was surprised that the boy decided to take a shrimp with him, which greatly angered the latter. Jack greeted him and explained to Nicholas that they needed people at this stage, and besides, he was now the deputy of the third echelon column. Wasabi Man said that Jack shouldn't be a fool. With his abilities, he could easily take the position of column leader. The guy replied that he wasn't interested. Justin left, and this was the perfect opportunity for Tiana to improve her rank. She was very busy. Wasabi Man replied that he had something to do too. If it weren't for Tiana, he wouldn't have done it, even if he was dying. Jack was looking for teammates for the dungeon battle. There was no one he needed in the third echelon, so he asked to find people from the second echelon. Wasabi Man said that these people were above humans in both level and ability. If he were present, he would be able to ask several people to unite. He selected people at Jack's request, spending a lot of time searching for suitable candidates. Wasabi Man immediately warned that he was not responsible for their behavior. They are very proud, so they look down on everyone. Without his status, it would be impossible to persuade them to fulfill Jack's request. In addition, the participants were top players. The thief had to pay a considerable amount to get them to agree, and he had been saving for a long time. A second later, an arrogant voice was heard, asking Wasabi Man if these two were really their partners. Standing next to Jack were players of the 9th and 10th levels. They really didn't like that Jack and Nicholas were so weak. Especially little Nicholas, the boys couldn't believe they were taking this shrimp with them. A 9th rank girl joined the group, saying that these dungeons were beyond the capabilities of 3rd rank participants. Little Nicholas was very impressed by the girl's forms, but Jack saw only a standard face. Jack interrupted the idle chatter and suggested getting to know each other better, saying that this time he would be the team captain. The shocked invited players thought at first that the guy was joking so badly. A level 7 thief is probably completely stupid. The captain must be able to lead in order to defeat the monster. How the team will clear the dungeon. Wasabi Man asked him not to ask anything. If there were any questions, Jack would answer them. Each of the players completed the dungeon at the highest difficulty level with the squad. For the 3rd echelon, the record is the medium difficulty level. They believed that it would be safer to make Jensen captain, since he was at least level 10, and the guy was not at all against such an offer. But Jack cut short the guy's confidence, saying that if he could get them through the crazy level of difficulty, it wouldn't matter who he was. Everyone present looked back at the unknown thief, who was standing with his arms crossed over his chest. No one expected such a turn of events. Wasabi Man asked Jack not to mock. This dungeon was level 10. The guy's proposal was too audacious. Jensen laughed, saying that the guy's audacity comes from the fact that he turns out to be so stupid and doesn't know basic things. The girl, Selena, also joined Jensen. She said that this level is difficult, even for the 1st echelon. The mockery of everyone present was interrupted by another player who joined the group, who asked if everyone was here to clear the dungeon. It was Hamer. Jensen was unhappy and asked what he was doing here. The guy replied that he just brought a friend to clean the dungeon. Selena and Nicholas were impressed by this player, who had a beautiful protective gold suit of a special level of difficulty. Hamer was a player in the 1st echelon of the Sky's Edge Guild. Although his level was not that high, The guy still wore golden equipment. Jack had heard that Sky's Edge and Misty Cliff had good relations, and in general that was the case. Sky's Edge always remained neutral. Hamer is not the strongest warrior of the first echelon, but he is enthusiastic and well-connected, and he also has friends in several large guilds. Wasabi Man had heard that even the leader of Sky's Edge maintained good relations with him. Jack understood that great connections were also a manifestation of strength anywhere. Jack went through all these difficulties in his past life alone. Now, looking back, he really didn't understand how he ended up here. Meanwhile, the other members of the group told Hamer what was happening and said that it was all that brazen thief's idea. Hamer decided to ask Jack himself if this was true. The others thought it was a real disgrace for Misty Cliff. Hamer said he didn't know the thief's name, but asked if he had any particular style of play. Jack replied that, in fact, it was not a special style of play and gave his name. Hamer's reaction was unexpected. The boy knew the name from the monthly guild battle. Everyone, amazed, began to ask how Hamer knew this guy, and he asked them why they hadn't heard anything about the captain of squad number 1. Jensen, confused, replied that they didn't participate in the monthly battle, so they didn't really understand what the conversation was about. Meanwhile, Hamer couldn't stop. He told everything he knew about Jack and his adventures. Little Nicholas really liked this. Finally, he had a like-minded person who was enthusiastic about Jack's personality. But just as the boy was about to tell how everything really happened, Jack shut him up and said that it was all just a coincidence. Hamer was simply asking to participate in cleaning this dungeon. Jack wasn't against it at all. It would speed up the process a bit. Nicholas still tried to tell the truth about his idol, despite the fact that the guy tried his best to prevent it. Jensen and Selena, looking at Hamer's reaction, realized that they simply didn't need to worry about anything anymore. Jack was a reliable person. Realizing that all controversial issues were resolved, the guy generated a portal to an insane level of dungeon difficulty. A system notification informed that the 10th level dungeon, violation of the Buddha's precepts, had been activated. If the group members completed at an insane level of difficulty, fulfilling the appropriate conditions during this time, then the main reward for the squad will be the rare item Petrified Ring. A second later, the squad members were at the location. Everyone was worried about the question of whether the Petrified Ring still existed. Jack replied that after completing the dungeon, he would only need this thing. The group could divide the artifacts equally. He understood that no one believed in the existence of the ring and said that they would find out all about it later. For now, they had to remain vigilant. Very close by, around them, spawns of monsters roamed, for example, blind monks, each of whom was level 10. But this wasn't the only type of monster in this dungeon. On the other side were wandering deaf followers, each of whom was also level 10. These blind and deaf mobs looked no different from those at high levels, but their energy and artificial intelligence were completely different. We had to speak more quietly because there were even more of them there. One of the strongest was an elite silent old man. Nicholas was scared by all these monsters, which looked terrifying, but Jack told him not to worry and gave him a disposable claw hook. Each of the participants received the same hook, and everyone was curious about what it was for. Nicholas was delighted. He was not afraid of anything and wanted to take care of what others were afraid of. But Selena told the boy to watch next to her. Jensen was curious what would happen next. The monsters' characteristics were enhanced to an insane level so much that they couldn't resist them. Jack replied that of course they didn't have to do that. This time they would use the group play style. Selena asked if the whole group really trusted Jack. Jensen replied that if Hamer trusted him, then they should do the same. The girl asked the other players in the guild about Jack, and it seemed that the monthly battle was quite revealing. There were rumors that he wasn't that bad. Most of all, she was curious about why the boy had sent them to such a strange place, even giving them hooks to get there. The group members were lost in guesses about Jack's plans for this dungeon, and they were divided into separate squads. Hamer said that they were a blocking squad. The guy was delighted. He was curious about what Jack was up to, while Nicholas looked at his golden shield. Nicholas reasoned that the golden shells were worthless, but against the background of Hamer, he looked weak in the eyes of Captain Jack. The boy planned to become Captain Jack's protector. Nicholas couldn't let the thief think he was worthless. He was very angry at Hamer's condescending attitude. The guy didn't consider himself a kid at all and wasn't going to let others call him that. He attacked Hamer, shouting to never call him that. He was a warrior. Wasabi Man really liked the cute kid. In general, all the team members selected by Jack were quite interesting. The third-tier thief couldn't wait to see the ambitious guy's tactics. Jack informed the players that they should expect his return at the location, whose coordinates he had already sent them. They must not go anywhere without his orders, and Jack himself will go to lure the monsters. Amazed, Hamer asked if the boy was going to do it alone. Maybe he needed the help of the warriors. Jack refused. Then Hamer asked how they could use the grappling hook and help him from their points. What kind of strategy was that? Jensen was also unhappy that they were drawn into strange groups. They had to follow some profane person. But the guy didn't want to reveal his plans ahead of time. He insisted that the group simply wait for his return. Wasabi Man reasoned that they could be destroyed in an instant if they had to fight a large number of monsters. And besides, it was still a temporary group. Jack ordered everyone to get ready and take their seats immediately. Wasabi Man couldn't believe his eyes. The boy raced ahead of the crowd of monks and deaf students who were too numerous. Hamer was delighted with the number of enemies. Nicholas had already shouted that he had better not be disturbed. Selena said to prepare holding spells, or any other control spells just in case. Jack ordered Squad C to place their shields in the spot he had marked and block the exit, which the boys did immediately. Jack ordered Squad B and Wasabi Man to immediately prepare his crossbow, which he replied was already ready. The participants were amazed at how this guy lured so many monsters and how he returned unharmed. Jack ordered Squad D to create a restraining spell and a control spell at 3-second intervals at the destination point. The mages began to cast spells to fulfill their commander's task, sending the energy of the spells towards the mobs. The first was the Magic Slowing Circle spell. When it was created, all mobs could not move freely in the clearing. The participants of all the squads looked down at the clearing, which was dotted with high-level monsters. The circle almost completely formed. Jensen announced that he had finished his spell, and now it was his friend, the elf's turn. And he didn't mind. Jack was happy. He had calculated everything well. Now was the perfect moment to carry out what he had planned. Squad B must enter the magic circle and shoot the mobs in front so that they do not lose their hostility. Wasabi Man was afraid that by doing so, he would bring all their anger and hatred upon himself. But Jack ordered him to simply do as he said. He promised to take care of the rest, and Wasabi Man, without hesitation, launched a frontal attack. When the mob's hostility was already focused on the third-tier thief, Jack ordered him to lure the mobs back into the slowing circle. Wasabi Man completely agreed with this, while Jack attacked each of the mobs from behind and dealt a devastating blow. Taking advantage of the terrain to collect monsters with a strategy of attack, defense, and slowing spell, Jack's group lured a huge number of monsters and kept them in one pile, preventing their attacks. Jack's movements were incredibly flexible. He found the perfect place to trap the monsters, and he managed to dodge their attacks. Hamer was surprised that during such an intense fight, the boy could still give orders to other members of the group. The guy didn't understand at all how this low-ranking thief managed to do such things. Even first-tier thieves weren't that skilled. Hamer was sure that it was completely impossible to take into account so many aspects at once. The guy decided to urgently write it down. Jack ordered Squad C to use their shields to block the mobs. They should direct the monsters back to the circle. Nicholas didn't need to be told twice. He had already rushed to the attack, taking cover with his shield. Squad D should have immediately created a kill spell once they were done with the slowing spells. Suddenly, in the heat of the battle, Jensen received a message from Hamer, asking him to urgently record Jack's operation. He insisted that this recording should be shown to the leader of the Sky's Edge Guild, Ben. But Jensen didn't argue and turned on the recording. Jack, like some kind of superhero, slowly advanced among the monsters, in front of his comrades, creating an amazing spectacle. The mobs aggressively tried to attack the guy, but he easily destroyed them, without even blinking an eye. Jensen was delighted. For the first time, he managed to kill a bunch of monsters with one blow, and Selena had already managed to restore her mana, wanting to join in. Jack noticed that the magicians had stopped attracting monsters to them and decided to ask if everything was okay with Squad C. Nicholas and Hamer replied that they had no problem. If the mobs could get through them, then the mages above would suffer. Nicholas understood this even without Hamer's instructions. He just preferred that the boy not interfere with his work. He understood that protection was needed, but there were so many monsters in the clearing. They could all attack them at once. The boy called out to Jack, but Jack ordered Squad D to continue casting the elimination spell. Selena got down to business, creating a fiery stream of energy. She wanted to end it already. The elf intended to help her. A moment later, through collective efforts, ash began to form in the middle of the clearing, lifting mobs into the air one by one. Wasabi Man, who was already at a safe distance, mused that he seemed to have underestimated Jack's tactics and his command. The guy is quite competent at neutralizing the monsters and deftly slipping between them, remaining unharmed. Also, on top of that, Jack still manages to attack and give orders to all of them, which was a great honor. Nicholas got tired of standing in one place and told Hamer to rest a bit while he stopped these mobs himself. Jack easily gained the trust of his comrades. Thanks to him, everything was so good in their new team. Suddenly, the insane level dungeon became so easy for all participants. It seems like the comrades managed to stop the first wave. Jack said that there would definitely be 2 more waves before he could go out to lure monsters again. The mages needed to restore their mana. The team should prepare themselves because this time they will use the same tactics as before. Meanwhile, in the Colosseum dungeon, a battle of the first echelon of Sky's Edge was also taking place on high difficulty. The group of players had already reached the main boss, who was very aggressive. Thanks to the depriving shot, the monster's armor disappeared and the group had a chance to kill it. The leader of the Sky's Edge Guild, Ben, noticed that the monster's range of abilities was not yet wide enough because it still had its cloak on. Another member of the group, approaching Ben from behind, asked what strange ability he would use this time. This player was the deputy leader of the Sky Boundary Guild, Keith, and his presence greatly encouraged Ben. The guild head said that he was just testing his abilities and asked if the deputy had done everything. The cat replied that for members of the first echelon, this was a trifle, and between the first and second guilds, there was probably still a great gulf. Ben asked about White Jade and Misty Cliff. Kit replied that the friction had not stopped, and the Shield Prince had secretly joined the others. But, despite all these events, the leaders of both groups are already preparing for some action. At the last moment, the deputy of the Sky's Edge Guild managed to dodge the attacking monster that attacked him from behind. And a second later, he attacked him himself, stabbing his sword into the giant's eye. Following the first attack, the player launched a second one, which finally pierced the ugly creature's skull. The cat realized that it was time to run as far away as possible from the giant, who had begun to activate the accumulation of energy. He heard that the 2 guilds were in a monthly battle. 7 people from the Misty Cliff destroyed dozens from the White Jade. All guilds from the leader to the bottom are full of anger. If they are disturbed, nothing good will end. Meanwhile, the monsters had already prepared a new attack. They planned to destroy their opponents. Ben noted that there will be another major conflict between the guilds. Until then, both teams will once again be winning them over to their side. Although Ben didn't like it, he skillfully avoided time and again conversations about such situations. Suddenly, the players are distracted by Hamer. It turns out that the guy sent a crazy-level video with the thief of Misty Cliff. The battle between the deputy and the guild leader of the Sky's Edge immediately stopped. They couldn't take their eyes off what they saw. Hamer also asked in the chat if the clan leader had ever encountered such a strong thief. A new wave of fighters was approaching the Sky's Edge group. The team was asking what to do, but Ben was only busy with the video he was watching. Jack fought alone with the dungeon's strongest insane-level monster, a silent old man. He who does not see beauty is a blind monk. He who does not hear songs is a deaf imitator. He who does not say a word about Venation is a silent old man. A system message announced that the players had attracted the attention of an elite silent elder. Jack's first attack on him failed. The giant parried the blow with his dagger and threw the boy a long distance. The members of Jack's group had their mouths open. The sight was worth it to arrive at this level. Hamer couldn't believe he had never heard of Jack before. With such abilities, joining a top guild was a simple task for him. He decided to report everything to Ben. He said that the group was watching Jack fight a silent old man of the Dungeon of the Insane level. Hamer added that he was filming everything on camera. The guy was doing it with a plan and sent a message. Nicholas realized that, at that moment, he had to fulfill his part of the plan and ran towards the silent old man. The magicians from their location wondered if they could use the same method against the old man. They didn't know what to do. Suddenly, Jack appeared near them and said that the elite's field of vision is very different from the field of vision of ordinary mobs. This is no place for DPS. Nicholas asked what they should do then, and warned that he was already transforming right now. But no one except Jack understood this. But the group leader replied that there was nothing to do. He said that he would handle everything himself. When the group asked him if he was sure of his decision, the boy replied that he was too fast, the old man wouldn't chase him. Jack was sure that with his current attack, hitting the silent old man wasn't too much of a problem. Finally, pressing his blade to his chest, the boy said that he would deal with the target in 10 minutes. Shocked by this information, Jensen and Hamer said that it was impossible. 10 minutes was an unrealistic time frame. Selena said, regarding this, in the dungeon, the mage's damage was useless. They fought for 20 minutes and sacrificed a shield to destroy him in close combat. The guy pointed out that they simply had the wrong strategy. If they destroyed the necklace around the old man's neck, the magical attacks would work. This information amazed those present. They began to ask how the guy knew this because no one had heard of such a thing. Jack replied that he had read it in the library. Besides, the guy had the ability to stack attacks, so don't worry. He couldn't say he learned about it in a past life. Wasabi Man said that even if the guy was confident of victory, he still had to be careful. The next second, the boy had already jumped into the valley in the direction of the silent old man who was meditating. The boy's first attack was a backstab, which managed to catch part of the old man's necklace. Memories of all the actions that happened to Jack in his past life seemed to be becoming clearer at this moment. With another swift blow to the back, the boy destroyed another of the silent old man's beads. And when the third bead was destroyed, the old man even opened his mouth as wide as possible. Jack's body unconsciously imitated movements that had been repeated dozens of times in his past life. The boy felt as if he could defeat the silent old man, even with his eyes closed. Jack delivered blow after blow. The squad members watched as the boy attacked the monster from the blind spot with very precise movements. Hamer noted that this was the most cunning thief he had ever met. Jack was like a ghost. Agile movements, extremely high speed, this guy was like a giant poisonous snake that had wrapped itself around the monk. Wasabi Man replied that it was top time. That's why Jack had such technique and micro-control. The thief's biggest fan, Nicholas, confirmed that their group captain was very strong. The guy promised to give it his all and stay by Jack's side, becoming his support. Jack struck again, destroying the last of the Elder's beads and ordered Squad D to use a destruction spell. This should be the final blow. The comrades decided not to waste time and began to generate the spell the boy had requested. Each magician generated his own. A fiery circle, territory penetration, snake bonds, while Jack cornered the old man with his attacks and movements. The guy realized that they had used a lot of force at the same time, and in order to defeat the enemy, it was necessary to deliver a decisive blow. Jack used evil spirit stealth against the silent old man, shouting for him to take his final blow. After that, by stacking attacks, he activated Shadow Blink, a finishing technique that dealt triple damage. A second later, the guy received a system notification that reported the killing of the elite monster Silent Elder. The shocked Hamer, who had been filming everything all this time, suddenly saw a very strong opponent approaching. With their fierce fight, his group diverted the attention of the level 10 Apostate Buddha, the dungeon boss who was already here. Ben was very surprised that the silent old man's necklace could be broken, so that magical attacks would work on him. The head of the Sky's Edge clan thought that this thief seemed to know too much. He asked Keith if he could give orders and fight at the same time if he were in the thief's shoes. He replied that the first squad of their guild was only able to clear the special level of Buddha's Apostate, and it took a whole hour. They had to rely on several groups to hold him down for the nearby fighters and grind him to death. The deputy found it difficult to imagine the effort they would have to put in to defeat a boss of the insane level. Not to mention the information regarding the necklace. Even if everyone was aware, defeating the silent old man alone was unrealistic. After all of the above, Keith was inclined to think that he wouldn't be able to do the same. Ben also admitted that it would be difficult. The clan leader said that if one of the reasons for the victory was this guy's abilities, then the main reason was top time. The cat probably also noticed that Jack had top timing. People with such skills are very famous. They must definitely get close to him. The cat didn't understand why a guy with such abilities was still in the third echelon. And he was also curious about what the clan leader was up to. Ben said that next time they went to clear the dungeons, Hammer should take Jack with them. The apostate Buddha said that suffering leads to breaking the precepts and started a duel. Only in fantasies could the adversary find a life full of happiness. He struck the ground with his staff, raising energy waves. He looked at the group members with his fiery eyes and asked why they didn't bow to him and forget everything. No one in the group understood why their attacks didn't work on this boss. Everything was completely different from the previous difficulty level. The apostate Buddha must have gone mad. No one knew what to do. But Jack told them not to worry. There was always a way out. The thief drew the attention of his friends to the boss's 4 hands. In fact, he attacks using them. If you cut off his hands, he will no longer be able to attack. Hamer decided to ask what exactly the guy meant. Did he really want to break individual parts of the crazy-level boss's body? It was already good that they were able to kill the boss. It wasn't worth taking such a risk. But Jack replied that they had someone who could help with that. But that would be a little later. Right now, it was Jack's turn to enter the game. Everything had to be done quickly. The boy quickly ran to the boss, shouting at the end that he would really need the strength of baby Nicholas. The magicians should continue the attack. Nicholas had no time to hesitate this time. His brother Jack was counting on him, so he shouldn't let him down. Jack ordered Wasabi Man to hold the boss in place, who shouted that the guy should not forget about increasing the Buddha's power. They were dealing with an apostate Buddha of insane level. No one had ever seen him in such a state. Meanwhile, the insane-level apostate Buddha began generating streams of energy in each of his 4 hands. Hamer, who continued shooting, still couldn't shut his mouth. The boss could use 4 abilities at once. It was terrifying. The apostate Buddha said that it was pointless to go against him alone, looking at the boy who was rushing towards him. He fired all 4 energy beams of different skills at Jack as the boy jumped to perform a backstab. But Jack was no fool at all. He used Evil Spirit's stealth to attack. The apostate Buddha activated the spell on his hand in order to interrupt the boy's skill. The crazy-level boss considered the guy's act naive, but he still dared to stab in the back again. But the apostate Buddha was very clever and managed to turn around and grab Jack before the boy could strike. The guy actually needed this. The distance was optimal for him to start acting. While still in the boss's hands, the boy activated Deadly Whirlwind, which severed 3 of the apostate Buddha's arms. Immediately after that, Jack ordered little Nicholas to attack the boss from above and show him his strength. The other members of the group were shocked by this decision. Was the guy really sending the child to certain death, while Nicholas would come to an end? Wasabi Man was also worried. He didn't know if little Nicholas could be hiding secrets that Jack was keeping quiet about. The boy, despite the cries of warning from his comrades, rushed to help Jack, and Buddha was dissatisfied. And soon Nicholas's fist did indeed collide with the fist of the renegade Buddha in a powerful blow. Before the eyes of his amazed brothers, little Nicholas began to turn into a giant. It turns out he had frightening power. The 2 giants engaged in a fierce fight. Despite everything around, Jack barely managed to escape harm. Jack insisted that Nicholas pay attention to the place he had marked. The thief had already run towards the final battle, shouting for Nicholas to lead the enemy there. The boy agreed. Selena was amazed by what she saw. The boy was able to push away the crazy apostate Buddha with physical strength alone. Nicholas, meanwhile, used the lion's heart shield against the enemy, creating reinforced shoulder shields. As soon as they became active, Nicholas, with great zeal, began to squeeze the apostate Buddha out of the clearing in the direction of the given coordinates. The boy's swift attack sent up such a column of dust and light that the team couldn't make out anything at all. Finally, Wasabi Man understood what the kid's secret was. Now it's clear why Jack took him with him. The boy is just a monster. From the pressure of Nicholas, the apostate Buddha began to feel dizzy, which only intensified. Apparently, the guy was creating very unpleasant consequences for his opponent with his attacks, so he decided to destroy the shoulder shields. But it wasn't that easy to do. The guy skillfully fended off the boss's attacks, who reinforced each of his blows with spells. Nicholas activated the solid, fearless shield of the Lionheart and struck the apostate Buddha with it. The entire clearing was filled with smoke and a glow of energy. When the smoke cleared a little, the group members saw that the apostate was still standing, but Nicholas was still nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, a boy's giant hand appeared from the smoke, reaching for his opponent's head. Nicholas became even bigger. He hit Buddha, and he rose into the air, losing his balance. The guy shouted for Jack to start. The crazy-level boss, the apostate Buddha, was flying in the air above the ground with his eyes closed. Hamer shouted that they would not allow the enemy to fall into the abyss without defeating him, because he would be reborn again and the mission would be failed. But everything was happening exactly as Jack had planned, the apostate flying straight into his arms. The guy activated Backstab and began mercilessly finishing off Buddha before he disappeared below. Jack said that the apostate would go straight to hell and wished him good fun in the abyss. While the insane-level boss fell into the abyss, the boy continued to relentlessly deliver blow after blow to him. Realizing that it was time to get out, Jack activated a disposable hook. He wouldn't even need to get rid of his body. Suddenly, Jack heard laughter behind him. It was the laughter of Buddha, who said that he and the boy were the same. They both had a crippled soul. Despite the fact that physically the boss was now alone falling into the abyss, in fact, mentally they were both doing it, the guy was touched by these words. Now everyone recognized them on the streets of any city, because it was incredible news. Even the participants themselves were amazed by such a battle. In fact, this strategy belonged to a pro from Jack's past life. The difference was that Nicholas did all the work of several people. Wasabi Man noticed that Jack and Nicholas's levels had increased, but for a generous reward, so be it, he would forgive them. The system awarded experience to participants based on their contribution to completing the mission, so they and the baby received the most points. Selena received 12 points of magical damage, plus an additional ability, the Staff of the Grieving Buddha. Nicholas was very jealous of the girl, because he himself could not find any suitable reward for himself among those offered. Jack reassured the guy and said that he would help him level up later, and they would definitely get equipment for him too. This news greatly activated Nicholas, who began to shower him with offers and dreams in return. He was unstoppable. Suddenly, the conversation between the two friends had to be interrupted because someone called out to Jack. It turns out that this person was Hamer, who said that their leader, Ben, wanted to meet the guy and asked if he would accept the invitation. The Sky's Edge headquarters was crowded, everyone discussing their achievements and new equipment. Hamer, who was leading Jack through the palace corridors, asked what he thought. Their guild had the busiest headquarters in the game. Jack never thought he would ever find himself at the headquarters of the Sky's Edge Guild, even after he had already crossed the threshold of the Misty Cliff. The guy considered himself nothing more than a third-tier thief. None of these players would pay attention to him. But Hamer had a different opinion. Hamer thanked Jack and offered his help, and Jack replied that he was not against it at all. It bribed the guy. The leader of Heaven's Edge, Ben, is one of the few who shook up Paradise Valley in a past life, the first brutal archer. Suddenly, the boy smelled some kind of potion, and in front of him stood a girl who was selling potions that increased mana and health. Jack asked if the guild had started training alchemists. Hamer didn't know who was doing that at all. The mages only sold potions. In Jack's past life, alchemists were only useful 6 months after the game started. It was their specialization. Suddenly, the boy remembered that there were a couple of alchemists here who created beautiful potions that became popular. The boy had the idea to train his own alchemists. As far as he remembered, there was one who ran a shop in Paradise Valley. If Jack was not mistaken, his nickname was Celestial Alchemist Vancraft. Now he was probably still a novice magician. If Jack trains an alchemist, he will become his personal magician. We need to start right after he figures this out. The boy's thoughts were interrupted by the deputy captain of the Sky's Edge, Kit, who asked the boy how the guild was and noted that he was in a good mood. Hamer was very happy about this meeting. He introduced Keith to Jack, who politely greeted him. The cat said that from this moment on, he would take Jack to Ben and thanked the boy for his work, saying that he could take a break. Finally, Hamer invited Jack for a drink when he was free, and Kit escorted the boy to Ben's house, welcoming him to the Sky's Edge Guild. When Jack finally appeared before the guildmaster, he immediately thanked him for the invitation and asked what he wanted to talk about. Ben replied that the guy single-handedly led the fight in the dungeon at an insane level, and that, in his opinion, was unbeatable. The guild leader didn't want to drag it out and immediately offered to become Jack's friend. They could fight in the dungeons together. He asked if the guy knew about the new level 15 dungeon Catastrophic Graveyard. The dungeon's record was at a high level. Jack remembered that the dungeon took 2 hours to complete. Keith said that the record was set by the first guild, and since then, no one has broken it. Ben asked if Jack could clear him. The crazy mode of Catastrophic Graveyard is much more difficult than Apostate Buddha. Keith understood that Ben wanted to take the chance to test the thief's abilities, whether he thought he had not fully realized his potential. Jack asked if Ben wanted to be the first to complete the dungeon on the crazy level, and he replied that the guy understood everything correctly. Jack looked slyly at the guild leader and said that it was no problem for him at all, but the dungeon would not be cheap. Ben really liked such a self-confident answer. The thief was indeed very straightforward in his statements. Ben said that the team composition, classification, attributes were in Jack's hands. He is the team leader. Ben, along with Keith, will also participate. Jack agreed. He had already come up with a plan, but this dungeon had its own conditions. The guy hadn't reached the required level. He needed a couple of days. In front of a shocked Kit, Ben and Jack added each other as friends. They had already decided everything. Jack decided to ask for the skill books. He would have looked for them for a very long time himself. The guy agrees to buy them at a reasonable price. The cat asked what books the boy needed. He could just give some as a gift. Jack named the necessary literature. 2 books were no problem at all, but one of the items on the list was a fairly rare attribute, and he would ask the players to search for it. Keith said they could do it in 3 days, and Ben assured them that the books would be sent to Jack as soon as possible. The guy thanked him. He asked why Ben and Keith hadn't become awakened yet, if both were at level 15. Ben replied that even if it is easy for them, the specialized test also assesses the level of development of the awakened one. For example, Darkscar was one of the most terrifying people in the game. The speed of awakening increases the chances of becoming the strongest player. That's why they're still trying to find out if there's a way to increase their wakefulness rate. Jack happily gleaned the information. He had guessed it, but he didn't know that there were those who studied methods to increase the power of awakening. It is quite possible to get what you want if someone learns how to do it. It is no wonder that there were so few awakened people in his past life. The guy said he wouldn't hold the players back any longer. He needed to go, and promised to contact them after work. Ben considered Jack a solid player. He had a strong aura. The impression that the thief would definitely win and move on. The cat was also looking forward to the next meeting. And the reason was not only how Jack had passed the crazy level dungeon, the cat definitely wanted to meet Jack in order to fight him when he raised his level. There was lively trading on Greyfall Street, with each participant wanting to buy something for themselves, but often they were not satisfied with the price.